Hello and welcome to another video. This is the 13th episode of the story in which Jiraiya and Tsunade are supposed to watch over Naruto, but instead Orochimaru takes care of him. How will this affect others as well as both of them? What will it mean for Konoha? This story was written by Brown Phantom. Kindly support him, her. Like and subscribe to help to support videos. Let's start this show. While Sarutobi was being kept busy with the visiting leaders, elsewhere in the stadium where there were no prying eyes, more was going on. Something that desperately required privacy. Naruto, Fu, and Gaara were standing before three adults, neither of which could be seen under the shadows. All that was visible of them was their silhouettes and their eyes. One set was yellow, another brown, and the last violet. The yellow-eyed one was also taller than the others. "You certain we have time for this little chat, Otokage-sama, Subsonic-san, Kushina-san?" Fu asked. "Yes, we do, if we keep it short." Orochimaru's voice could be heard. "I just wanted to let you know that we will be in hiding for now, while Tsunade-chan and Yamato-kun draw the old man's attention. With them right next to him, and you all in the matches, he won't be as likely to focus on anyone else. Jiraiya-kun is also busy with his role right now, and that should provide further cover for us." "What about the guards?" Gaara asked. "Leave them to us. Just remember, fight your matches as best you can, but don't reveal your secret weapons just yet. Also, don't exert yourselves. You three are vital players in our plan for Konoha, so we need you all to have plenty of energy for when we start. If possible, last long enough until Gaara's match. By then the security should relax and we can have everything for our great surprise prepared. Naruto, when the time comes, you come to me since I'm going to need your help as soon as possible. From there you can go join your friends." "I'm on it, Ji-san," Naruto said eagerly. "What will you be doing, Oka-san?" "Mostly waiting for my time to get a little payback," Kushina's voice replied. "Remember guys, we'll be watching how you perform." Subsonic added. "I've got faith in you all." "As do I. Now get back to the arena before you're too late," Orochimaru stated. The three genin ran off. "Good luck, son," Kushina whispered. Subsonic looked at the red-haired Uzumaki. "Come on Kushina, we've got to go." Kushina nodded, and the three disappeared into the shadows. In the seats of the stadium, the inhabitants of Konoha and many visiting the village for the event were getting comfortable or finding places to do so. Naruto, Fu, and Gaara joined the other contenders in the arena, them being Hinata, Haku, Isaribi, Shino, Kiba, Lee, Shikamaru, Dosu, and Temari. In front of them stood a Konoha jounin with a bandana for a Hitai-8 and a senbon held between his teeth like a toothpick. When the time came, he spoke up, a jutsu amplifying his voice enough for everyone to hear it. "Hello everyone and welcome to the Chunin exam finals. Here we'll see those nominated for Chunin rank and strong enough to make it this far in the test fight to show their strength and see if they've got what it takes to become authentic Chunin. I'm your host, Ganma Shiranui." Hey-8 would have been the announcer here, but a few council members feared that a sickly announcer would reflect poorly on Konoha's image, and in no time the others couldn't help but agree. Mainly because of the lack of their glorified Uchiha, they feared looking even more feeble to potential clients and enemies. So Hey-8 was in the stadium seats next to his girlfriend Yugugo. The genin who weren't participating were seated as well. The Oto genin sat amongst themselves and their senseis with Kankuro and Baki seated between them and the Konoha genin. They weren't seated right next to each other, but the two were on opposite ends with the Suna Nin in the middle. Among the Konoha ninja Sakura sat by herself, none of her old classmates seated by her. They were with their families and teammates, while hers weren't near her. Kiba was with the other contestants. Natsumi had no interest in watching. In her words, a bunch of brutes shoving their weight around like they're big shots, and Sasuke simply was nowhere to be seen. The rules of this portion of the test are just like those of the preliminaries. Genma continued. The matches will be one-on-one, and will continue until one of the contestants is unable to continue, does something illegal, or I declare the match as good as done. Understood? All contestants nodded. There is no time limit and you are to treat this match as life or death. Do not leave the arena or you will automatically forfeit. Also do not continue the match after it's declared over or else you will be disqualified from further matches. With that said, let's get started. Would everyone except Kiba Inuzuka and Naruto Urashi leave the arena? Everyone left, leaving only the two named boys still in the arena. Genma motioned for where they should stand and they complied. Kiba smirked. So you're from that music note place? I've encountered a few of your types before. Good luck taking me down in one shot. I'm wearing an athletic cup this time. Naruto just gave him a deadpan look. I'm a guy you know, I don't want to hear about what you've got in your underwear. Ready? Genma asked, then waved his arm down. Begin. Kiba got into the Inuzuka stance and charged ahead, hoping to make a quick impact. Before this match, Naruto had a lot of things to consider on how exactly to do it. He didn't want to win too easily since he was still using this exam for its intended purpose, and he didn't want to compromise his identity by using a bad choice of Kekkai Genkai here. Using the Neo-Byakugan would alert the Hyugas even further than they already were, since it was clear the Oto group only had one Byakugan wielder present. Using the Tetsuten would alert Kakashi that he was the kid seen in Wave but disguised, thus risking a potential disqualification. Using the Mokuton would alert Konoha as a whole, and using the Hayaton would potentially give away some of Haku's secrets too if someone from Konoha fought her later. In the end, Naruto felt he had three safe choices to make in this match against Kiba, but would hold on them all for now. Naruto got into the defensive stance of Toad-style taijutsu, preferring not to use a Kekkai Genkai right away. He did however create a bunch of shadow clones to form a blockade. Kiba had to slow down to tear them apart with his claws and Akamaru had to bite them wherever he could. Both received a good number of punches from the clones though before they were destroyed. So far I'm not seeing anything different. He must be testing me like I'm testing him. Naruto thought. But I better stop before he does and get to work. The real Naruto then managed to get a lucky hit on Kiba's jaw when the Inuzuka left himself open in his attacks. Kiba felt it and it briefly stunned him for a second, but it didn't stop him. A clone came in and caught Kiba's attention before he could target the real Naruto and attack back. The real Naruto got some distance and activated his ghost body Kekkai Genkai. If his hair wasn't already dyed brown it would have turned white. After training with all 9 of his Kekkai Genkai since he acquired them, he had complete control over his switches from solid to ethereal when using this bloodline. He was solid when he wanted to make a hit and unsolid when he wanted to avoid one. Ghost Art, Phantom Claws of Decay. Naruto said after 4 hand signs, making pale gray almost white chakra form around his hands in the shape of claws that reached out and slashed Kiba and Akamaru both. A few clones were hit too, destroying them. Then the chakra claws faded away. So you're using ghost body Naruto? Tsunade thought as she watched. Pretty clever. Inuzukas are heavy hitters, but that's meaningless if they just pass right through you. What was that? It was like ice itself passed through me. Kiba thought, having felt a strong chill during the attack. He briefly glanced himself and Akamaru over but saw no wounds of any kind, not even a tear on his clothes. Naruto caught him off guard by continuing the fight right away and closing the gap quickly, using only taijutsu. Kiba had to fight defensively but when he attacked Naruto blocked each time. He's good at quickly switching between offense and defense, or maybe this style of taijutsu is for covering both purposes in each move. Either way, I better hit him with my own. Kiba told himself before backing away and getting on all fours. Try this on for size. Beast mimicry. Nothing happened. Kiba didn't even feel his chakra respond. What the? Beast mimicry. Still nothing. Beast mimicry, damn it. Something's wrong. Tsum muttered to herself as she watched her son struggle. Naruto just smirked. You can't do it. That attack takes away your ability to combine your physical energy and spiritual energy to make chakra. So until it wears off, you can't perform even the most minor of jutsu. Thanks to a sound-amplifying jutsu over the arena, everyone in the stadium was able to cheer what the contestants said to each other. After hearing what Naruto said, Sarutobi thought that information over. So that means this boy is not the one who took away the Sharingan, since both Kakashi and Sasuke have proven capable of performing other jutsu. Or maybe that requires a different technique than that one just shown. I wonder if we will find out just who really is a threat to our Kekkei Genkai. Kiba wasn't too worried. He may not have been able to go any jutsu for an indeterminate amount of time, but that didn't mean he was powerless. He ran forward towards his foe, moving slower than he expected, and tried to hit him, but Naruto dodged by slowly stepping to the side, like he was mocking the Inuzuka. What's the matter? Getting slow? Naruto taunted, angering Kiba into continuing the assault. Akamaru tried to help, but he was slower than expected to, and Naruto kept dodging them all. Then, to make things interesting, Naruto punched Kiba and sent him flying, leaving a trail in the dirt. Naruto just grinned to himself. Poor guy, probably doesn't have a clue what's going on. Phantom Claws of Decay doesn't just temporarily remove your ability to use jutsu, it removes your ability to use chakra in any way. Most ninja take for granted how much chakra they use to subconsciously increase their speed, attack damage, and endurance. You never see civilians jump through tree branches or hit like they have hammers for fists. That's all chakra subconsciously channeled to the limbs and skin to improve one's abilities. Even a ninja that uses no jutsu anyway uses their chakra this way. My technique takes that ability away, rendering the victim no different than a civilian for a short time, all the time I'd need if this truly were a matter of life or death. Naruto then pulled out a pair of trench knives, became invisible, and went on the offensive. Kiba's eyes widened. What? Where'd he? He stopped when he saw a moving set of footprints in the soft dirt head his way. Good, I won't be able to lose him that easily. He grabbed a kunai and threw it right where the footprints showed his opponent was standing, but the throwing knife passed right through. Did I miss? Kiba asked himself, looking down to see the footprints had stopped in place, but there was nothing to indicate a success hit or dodge. It's like the kunai just went right through him. Up in the Kage box, Sarutobi watched with much interest. A shinobi that can turn invisible, not a bad trick. I knew it was a good idea to cover the arena ground with loose soil to make it easier for our genin to track the sneakier foes. And if things worked out as I planned, one of the umbu who greeted the genin into the stadium should have been able to stealthily get a small barely noticeable scent on this Odo genin so the Inuzuka boy could still track him down. I just hope it was enough. That may have just been a lucky shot. Naruto told himself after Kiba's weapon harmlessly passed through his ghost-like body. It's not impossible to track me when I'm using ghost body, so maybe he can still smell me. His thoughts appeared more accurate when Kiba came forward and tried to punch him, his fist going right through Naruto's immaterial body. Huh. Your scent is right here, but it feels like you aren't. Clever trick, but I will find you. Kiba said, looking around the arena for any kind of sneak attack. Naruto smiled. Perfect. Now he's doubting his nose. I'll try a jutsu close-up then. And I think I know just the one. He made one hand sign and touched Kiba's face. Illusion art, rotten taste. This was a genjutsu he learned from Kurenai. Genjutsus were designed to target the senses to deceive the victim into experiencing something that was real only to them but imaginary to everyone else. Generally only the eyes and ears were targeted to make someone see or hear something specific, with smell and touch sometimes used to make the illusion feel more real to them. But this genjutsu was one of a kind, because it targeted the sense of taste, something virtually no one, not even another genjutsu user, expected to be target. What it did was trick the victim into experiencing a foul, horrible taste that varied from person to person, but was always incredibly unpleasant. It also came with two unintentional but not unwelcome side effects. One being since taste and scent were so closely connected, that the victim also to a lighter degree smelt something as horrible as the taste, and the other being that this genjutsu triggered the gag reflex and made the victim want to vomit, further hindering their ability to fight back. Kiba felt something cold touch his face and then the genjutsu took effect. He screamed, backing away and trying to spit out the offending taste, which he couldn't. He was too disgusted to even speak, but he tried to keep his guard up and keep his lunch down. That should be enough. Naruto thought as he became visible again and deactivated his Kekkei Genkai before resorting to good old-fashioned taijutsu at this point. What is this boy? Most of the Hyuga in attendance thought, many with their Byakugans active. At times he appears normal but other times he's nothing but a chakra blur to our eyes. Such a thing should be impossible, and yet it's happening. Hinata, her own Byakugan active while she watched from the future contestant area, saw their confusion and smirked. Ha! Confused you self-righteous bastards? You should be. The ghost body always plays tricks on dojutsus, such as being blurry to the Byakugan or incomprehensible to the Sharingan. When he's ethereal or even invisible he's just an unfocused glow to our eyes. Too bad you'll never figure out why. Her attention returned to the fight. Kiba managed to defend himself but took a few minor cuts. Akamaru tried biting Naruto's shins but he wore metal guards under his pant legs. Kiba managed to get a few minor cuts on Naruto as well. Damn, you're a tougher guy than I thought. Kiba said, somewhat complimenting the disguised Jinchuriki. By now the awful taste in his mouth had weakened, but was still there. You too. Most people would give up after I render them chakra-less. Naruto replied. We Inuzukas don't know the meaning of give up. Would you like a dictionary? I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Oh, very funny. Kiba said, trying not to get offended and lose his cool. I better do something else soon. This may be my only match in this exam to prove my worth as a Chunin, unless we're graded on the part after 2. Either way. Naruto told himself, wondering what he could do here. Kiba quickly pulled out a small bag and took out 2 soldier pills, ingesting one himself and giving one to Akamaru as well. Right away they both felt a surge of chakra return to them. Ha! Looks like all I have to do to stop what you did to me is take a pill. You can't defeat me now. Naruto just got back into his toad-style stance. Who says that's my only trick? And how long will the pill last? Kiba and Akamaru, now with red fur, rushed forward. Beast mimicry. Kiba declared, this time capable of performing the jutsu. Fire-style fireball jutsu. Naruto said before exhaling a gigantic ball of flame at the dog ninja. What the hell? Kiba shouted before trying to jump over it. Unfortunately, that was when the chakra he gained from the pill wore off and he was back to being unable to use his own chakra. Which meant he couldn't move quick enough to dodge it and took the hit. Up in the stands, Kiba's family held their breath in worry for him. The flames died and Kiba was seen laying on the ground covered in burns. He made little effort to get up, and Akamaru was afraid to touch him and make the burns hurt more. Naruto looked at Genma. What's your call, ref? Should I keep going or should I show mercy? Genma looked over the Inuzuka and decided to spare him further harm. Kiba Inuzuka is unable to continue. Winner, Naruto Urashi. Those from Oto and Suna cheered for the victor, and some from Konoha even offered up applause to be polite. Naruto walked back towards his friends, waving to the crowd as he did so while medics took Kiba away. Up in the stands, Sum looked over at her husband. "Please go see him, dear. It'll make him feel better to see one of us there while he's recovering." She herself couldn't go because as council member it was her duty to observe the matches and offer her suggestions regarding promotions. Her husband nodded and got up. Tsunade looked to Yamato. "What do you say about that, Otokage-sama? I must say I'm impressed that your genin offered mercy to his foe and allowed the authority figure to make the final call rather than decide on his own when enough was enough." "I agree. I'm more impressed that he chose to fight in Inuzuka with taijutsu the most, considering that clan's reputation, and managed to stay even with him." Sarutobi looked over. "What exactly is this ghost art method he displayed? I've never heard of any such thing." "Just a rare release of chakra. Native to our country that directly attacks the chakra network. It's called ghost art because the appearance and feel of such jutsus resemble spiritual powers but feel less benign," Yamato told him. "I don't want to reveal much, but by answering harmless questions once in a while I'll keep his suspicions down." The Kazekage leaned toward Sarutobi. "Hokage-sama, I admire the tenacity of your genin, but I personally wouldn't nominate him for Chunin. I have a feeling he won't be nominated either way," the old man replied. "Tenacity is a good trait for a ninja, but he barely got a chance to show much else. As for the other one, I saw a handy ability to weaken your opponent and a good defense. Not to mention a technique that's best known for being an Uchiha technique." Tsunade scoffed. "The Uchiha don't own the patent on fire jutsu sensei. And before you ask, no, I did not teach him that. You know I'm not a fire type. Even so, judging from what I've just seen, the boy's a good genin, but I wouldn't recommend him for Chunin just yet. Maybe, but he'll have more chances to prove it later," Yamato said confidently. When he was back with the other waiting contestants, Naruto was immediately greeted by Hinata and Fu. "Hey girls, how did I do?" "You did great. Never any doubt in my mind," Fu answered. "Hey, Naruto-kun, I noticed something unusual while you were fighting." Hinata started. "Like what?" "Well, even in your ghostly state, you left footprints behind. I still can't tell why. But it bothered me. I thought you couldn't leave footprints when you used that ability," she told him. Naruto looked confused. "I did? That can't be, somehow it happened. I didn't see any earth jutsu at work to make it happen. Maybe the ground is made from a soil that's hypersensitive to chakra so it still reacted to your presence." "So is that how Konoha's going to rig the tests here?" Fu asked. "Since they can't set up the matches the way they want, they try to give themselves a home field advantage." "Next contestants, Futakino and Shikamaru Nara, please come down here," Genma called out, interrupting the three Oto genin. "Good luck, Fuchan," Naruto told her. Fu winked as a sign of gratitude, then appeared in the arena right away, quite eager to have her own match. Shikamaru on the other hand looked like he practically had to be dragged down to the arena by his ear. But he did come down and stood where he was told to, facing towards his green-haired kunoichi adversary. "What a drag, I gotta fight a girl. It's so troublesome. If I win, more girls will think I'm a bully, but if I lose, the guys will think I'm a wimp. It's a lose-lose situation for me here." He then mentally and physically sighed. "Oh well, guess it can't be helped. I hope she does okay out there," Naruto commented as he leaned against a rail to watch. "If the ground is as you said, that's going to affect her." Hinata leaned against her fiancé. "She'll be fine. She is one of the three strongest of us here after all." "Ready?" Genma asked, getting a nod from Fu and a shrug from Shikamaru. "Begin." Fu smiled and made two hand signs. Earth-style crevice obstacle jutsu. She then thrust her fist onto the ground and a shock wave could be felt. Then a large crack appeared between her and Shikamaru that split the entire arena area in half. But the gap was only half a meter wide. What was that for? Shikamaru asked himself. It's easy to jump over and would barely hinder my shadow at all. She's got to have something up her sleeve. He then just stood there, looking a bit impatient. Why's he just standing there? Isn't he taking this seriously? Ino asked from the stands. I'm sure he is. He's just trying to not to waste chakra by attacking her before he knows what she's going to do about it. Chuji commented in between a few chips. Subsonic says these Nara guys generally don't make a move until I actually try to hit them. Which means I have plenty of time to build up my defense to his traps. Fu told herself. I just gotta be careful about what else Konoha may have done to the field to work against me. With that in mind, the green-haired Jinchuriki pulled out a massive amount of ninja wire with kunais mixed in and threw it in front of her. Ninja art wire barrier. She channeled some chakra into it and the mass of wire took shape, forming a sort of meter-high wire fence that used kunais to anchor to the ground on her side of the trench. And stretched from one side of the arena to the other. This confused almost everyone watching, especially Shikamaru. What is she doing? Creating a small chasm and a fence? Is she purely a defensive specialist? Or is she a trap expert? There's only one way to find out for certain. Shikamaru knelt down and formed the rat sign. Shadow Possession Jutsu. His shadow extended forward towards her. It should have no problem getting past her fence, and her little crevice actually gives my shadow more length given how the sun's angled to ensure there should be some shade in it regardless of the depth. Shikamaru's shadow approached the crevice and went down. Fu smirked and it unnerved him, but he had to see where this went. His shadow took longer to get up and out of the trench than he expected, and the instant Fu saw it peek over the edge she vanished right before his eyes. A small dust trail formed from out of nowhere and headed under the fence and over the ledge before disappearing. Another small dust cloud picked up on his side for a moment before Fu reappeared, arms crossed confidently. Like that? She asked. What the hell? She waited until my shadow was on her side so she could cross over here to avoid being caught. She must know I have to retract my shadow to catch her here, and by the time I can do that she could just get back on her side and I'd have to do this all over again. And that fence must be in place to keep me from easily getting over there directly to fight her. I can't believe it, she created a trap specifically designed to work against my clan techniques. So what now, Pineapple Head? Shall we continue this until you run out of chakra, or should we duke it out the hard way? She asked him. Shikamaru cancelled his jutsu and stayed right where he was as he was, defensively. His mind was racing a mile a minute in hopes of creating a good enough strategy here. Had he felt comfortable enough, he would have done his unique hand sign, but here he didn't have that luxury. Okay, she's good at traps and evasiveness, but she has yet to actually attack me. It's too unlikely she can't attack, so she won't attack, not yet anyway. She's waiting for something or saving her strength. I better go on the defensive and hope I can coax an attack out of her to see what she can do in that department. I have a suspicion that whatever she has in that red pack she's carrying has something to do with that. Shikamaru then formed the rat sign again. Shadow Possession Jutsu. His shadow snaked out to ensnare her again. Fu saw it and laughed. A regular one-trick pony all right. She disappeared, i.e. became too small for him to see, too fast for him to truly notice how she did it, and ran back to her original side of the field. Once there she returned to normal size and looked back at the shadow wielder. I can do this all day, you know. But can you? Fu then noticed the space between them and saw something unexpected. Shimakaru had forked his shadow, where on his side of the crevice there were two shadow ends sticking out on either side and more of his shadow going into the crevice, but not yet coming out. He can divide his shadow? I thought he couldn't do that yet. Clever. Whether she stays or goes from where she is, I can still capture her. Shikamaru told himself, struggling to maintain his jutsu. Fortunately, the extra shade from the trench and a tree behind him gave him the length he needed to do this. Now that hard part was keeping it up. Why is it taking so long for the shadow to reach here? Is the crevice deeper than it looks? Fu pulled out a kunai with an explosive tag on it and threw it towards Shikamaru. It landed in the ground right by Shikamaru's left foot. The Nara had to jump to his right to avoid the blast and struggled to keep his jutsu still going, which he did. When he landed outside the blast zone, his shadow had to move with him, and making that happen drained a lot of chakra out of him. Fu looked at him confidently with her left hand on her hip. I know all about your clan techniques, Nara-san. You're the family of famous shadow wielders. And I can see how your shadow works. You can send it right at your opponent, combine it with the shadow of your target, and with that have control over their bodies, but your shadow has to travel to me to get that done, and so far it looks like it can only move two-dimensionally. Fu then threw another tagged kunai at him to make him jump again. Before she continued. Because of that, your shadow has to travel the entire surface wall of the crevice I created before it can reach me. But I took that into consideration. You probably expect the trench to look like this. Using her right index finger, Fu drew a V in the air. But I actually shaped it to look like this. She then drew an upside-down T. So basically your shadow has a long distance to cover underground. Maybe it does, but all that extra shade gives me more length to use and less chakra to do it with. Shikamaru said as his shadow finally peeked over and rushed at Fu quickly. Fu performed 3 hand signs ABND tushed the ground. Ninja art wire barrier tight enclosure. Right away the mono wire and kunai fence she created sprang out of the ground and fired at Shikamaru like a net. It was too wide for him to dodge, so he became ensnared and wrapped up tightly, but still had his hands together to keep his jutsu up. At the same time this happened, Fu became trapped by his shadow and forced to mimic his actions. Shadow possession jutsu success. Shikamaru said, wincing as both were forced to lay down on the ground. Troublesome, now it's a matter of who can get out of the other's trap first. Fu felt some chakra begin to build up inside her. Not yet, Shichibi, please stay down just a bit longer. I appreciate the thought, but it shouldn't be necessary. The chakra then died down. Everyone watched with much anticipation. Chuji was eating chips faster than Shikamaru was strategizing, practically inhaling them. It was a good thing Ino was right next to him and knew the Heimlich maneuver, in case he actually choked. Haku and Sasami were a bit more relaxed regarding their teammate, sensing that she would still get out of this one just fine. Naruto and Gaara watched in hopes their fellow Jinchuriki could get out of this without revealing anything too soon. After going over everything he could, Shikamaru faced Genma, making Fu do the same. I give up. He announced. You sure? Genma asked. Standard procedure demanded he double-check. Yeah. No matter what I do from this point I can't win. I can't keep her trapped forever, and she's not even using any chakra to keep me trapped here. And if I try to get out of this, I'd have to free her first, and if this were a real life or death situation, she'd easily be able to kill me before I could get out. There's nothing I can do except cut my losses here. Genma nodded. Winner by forfeit, Futakino. Shikamaru then released his hold on her. Fu came over and took off the wires and kunais binding him before offering him a hand to get up, which he accepted. Not bad. You could have done better, but at least you did catch me. Very few people have ever done that. Fu told him. I get the feeling you let me catch you so you could end this sooner. The Nara replied. The green-haired Jinchuriki's eyes hardened. Trust me, boy, I never let myself get caught. That was interesting. The Kazekage said. It was like a test of trappers rather than ninja. That girl is one of the best in my village who specialize in defensive and stealthy techniques. Yamato replied. She has to be, after growing up in Taki for years where the only times people did pay attention to her was to try and squash her like the bug they think she is. She's great at being hidden when she wants, and even better at traps. Not much of a direct fighter though, is she? Sarutobi asked. She can be. But she's just better at being defensive. Yamato explained. She was clever, well informed about her objective, prepared for her job, and didn't show off or waste energy. If you ask me, I would definitely recommend her for Chunin. Tsunade told Yamato. He nodded. I'll keep that in mind. Tsunade then looked at her old sensei, struggling to keep her anger still hidden from him. When it comes to the Nara sensei, I'm unsure what to say. He did make the best of a bad situation and still trap his opponent, so if he had a partner they could have moved in and finished her off, and he was smart enough to know when to proceed and when to back off, but his personal skills on the field seem a bit limited. It's a tough call. He does have a good head on his shoulders. That's always a nice trait in a Chunin. Indeed, but if I recall correctly, most villages agree that a good head isn't enough. Kazekage added. Personally, I would deny him a promotion, but that's just me. Gunma spoke up after some Umbu repaired the damage to the arena landscape. Next match, Temari Sabaku vs Haku Momochi. Down in the arena, Temari and Haku stood facing each other, both looking like they could take on the world and still have enough energy to take their man to their bedroom. Ready? Gunma asked. Just remember our little wager, Momochi-san. Temari stated. Haku smirked. Oh, I remember it, because I'm the one who's going to win it, Sabaka-san. What are they talking about? Naruto asked no one in particular. Oh, Haku-chan told me she and Temari-san made a bet for their match. Fu told him. The winner here gets to have you first between the two of them when it's their turn. Hinata whistled, impressed. This should be interesting then. Otokage-san, I'm quite curious. Could you tell me why one of your ninja bears the same name as a missing nin listed in the bingo book? Sarutobi asked Yamato. The ancestry of my shinobi is not public knowledge, Hokage-sama. Yamato replied diplomatically. But rest assured she is no relation to the man you're thinking of. Not by blood at least. Tsunade thought snidely. But that missing nin is more family to her than her own biological father had been. Perhaps it's just coincidence. The Kazekage stated. Strangers can have identical names, you know. I suppose so. Sarutobi said, still not convinced but knowing he couldn't push the issue. What say you regarding your daughter, Kazekage-sama? The Kazekage smiled. I have faith. I trained her well. Begin. Gunma called out, officially starting the match. As long as there's distance between us, she's got the advantage. Haku told herself, pulling out a few sunbon but not throwing them yet. If I can get close enough then she loses that, but not so close she can hit me with her fan directly. Temari held her fan out like a bat, keeping it closed for the time being. She's fast and deadly accurate, but as long as I make sure she can't get closer I'll have plenty of room to keep her from hitting me. The two girls stood facing each other without any further movement, both waiting for any sign to attack. Come on. Do something already. A kid in the stands shouted, expecting more action than this. The professional ninja knew exactly what was going on though. Both girls were diligently standing each other down. It was a use of psychological warfare combined with a display of stamina and endurance. The first one to make a bad move showed they were weaker than the other and thus more vulnerable and likely to run out of energy sooner. But if one attacked too soon, that showed they were reckless and impatient, which would make it easily to deceive them or exhaust them. Overall, it was practically a test all in its own to see what would happen. Haku suddenly smiled at Temari, confusing the Suna Kunoichi. What she got planned? Temari looked extra carefully at her, and noticed her left hand was moving. One-handed hand signs? No way. Ice-style blizzard mist jutsu. Haku aid before exhaling a cloud of cold fog that covered the entire arena area. Temari felt the fog and her skin went numb from the chill rather quickly. Nice try, but not nice enough. She opened her fan to the first moon and swung it around to get rid of the mist. It was gone, but Haku didn't look like she minded or even had been affected by the wind from Temari, which made Temari uncomfortable. Damn. I'm not sure what she's planning, but I can't let her get an attack in. Try this. Wind-style great breakthrough jutsu. Temari said as she swung her fan, now open to the second moon, sending a devastating amount of wind scythes grouped together to create maximum damage. Ice-style protective dome jutsu. Haku said as a curved wall of ice that looked much like the side of an igloo formed in front of her to take the hit and shield her from it. It took many gashes but remained upheld. Where'd that ice come from? From what I know of her skills, she needs water to make ice, but there's none here. Temari asked herself. She felt her skin go very numb and looked to see frost forming all over it and her clothes in random locations. Oh no. The moisture from the mist clung to my skin and is freezing. If she does this enough, I could get frostbite or hypothermia. From behind the ice wall it appeared even more mist was being made and would reach Temari soon. But there was no way the blonde kunoichi was going to let that happen. At least I can't run out of wind, but she's gotta have a limit to how much ice she can manipulate. Wind-style hammering tornado jutsu. Temari swung her fan and a tornado formed from it. It headed up and above her before directing itself towards Haku's side of the field. The force of the impact made everyone feel a surge of wind blown against them, making many spectators struggle to not fall backwards. Even Temari herself had to use her fan as a support to keep herself up. When the dust cleared, Haku's ice dome and cold mist were gone and she herself couldn't be seen. Genma came up to Temari. You okay, miss? Yeah, I'm fine. No need to war dash, she was cut off when she felt a kunai pointed at her neck, then Genma turned into Haku. Crap, I dropped my guard and let her get close. Looks like I win, Temari-san. The ice wielder said. Not yet, you didn't. Temari said, swinging her fan to make Haku move back. It worked, but Haku's outfit took a hit, cutting the front of her battle kimono open and revealing her ice blue lacy bra and panties. That's a girl? Sai asked himself, genuinely surprised. He was also probably the only male his age not getting a nosebleed from the free show. Naruto leaned into Hinata. Hina-chan, is it okay for me to be enjoying this? Actually, yes, it is, Naruto-kun. She's one of the 9, so she'd appreciate you enjoying her body. And no, I'm not bothered by it anymore, I've made peace with the fact you need to be with more than me. Just promise me I'll be your first. Naruto gave her a quick kiss on her cheek. I promise, Hina-chan. Haku briefly looked at the stands, aware that she was being eye-humped by many men, but looked to see Naruto in particular. He sent her a thumbs up and his trademark grin with a small blush, making her pleased before she looked back at Temari. Thank you, Temari-san, now Naruto-kun's going to be more interested in me than you. Especially if he sees more he likes. She then shed her torn outfit entirely, standing unashamed in just her underwear. Naturally a few hoots and hollers and even a "take it off" or two came from the crowd. But who could blame them? This was unexpected for the exams but not unwelcome, and Haku was a lot more developed than she usually looked when dressed in her normal attire. Not as developed as Hinata but a close second. Oh yeah? Well, two can play at that game. The wind wielder said before stripping herself down to just her purple pastel bra and panties, earning a lot of cheers. With this exposure, Temari looked like her bra size may in fact match Haku's. Haku chuckled but did nothing to interfere right then. Oh, this is going to be really fun now. The Kazekage covered his eyes when he saw his daughter take off her clothes in broad daylight. This cannot be happening. Please tell me this is not real. Sadly, it is real, Kazekage-sama. Tsunade said sympathetically to the leader of Suna. Eyes shielded from the fighting grounds, Kazekage glared at Sarutobi and Yamato, who both felt his ki. If either of you ever say a word about this, I'll kill you. Rings around his eyes formed as he made this threat. Sarutobi and Yamato fearfully nodded. We won't, but we must still watch the match to judge it correctly. The Kazekage did not look any more settled, but his professional side made sure he did not push the issue further. Too bad you don't have any weapons on you anymore, but I still do. Temari taunted, showing off her fully opened fan. Who said I needed weapons? Haku replied before making two hand signs and whispered a jutsu name. Right below Temari, ice formed at her feet and swiftly encased her all the way up to her neck. She struggled but couldn't move. It's like an ice version of Gaara's sand coffin technique. When she looked in front of her, she saw Haku had disappeared, but a shadow behind her revealed Haku was striking from behind, with Senbon in her hands. Wait, Senbon? Why would she? Oh, wait a minute. Temari then released a large amount of chakra and broke free of her bindings, just in time to avoid getting hit by her opponent. Clever trick, Momochi-san. You used a genjutsu instead of a real ice jutsu to trap me. Haku smiled. Oh, what gave me away? She asked playfully, like she wasn't really bothered Temari had gotten out of her trap. Your Senbon. Had it been real ice, you would have had to use a stronger weapon than that to make a mark on me. But with a genjutsu, all you needed was for me to hold still while you hit my pressure points. You're pretty smart, I'll give you that. But I'm more creative and I'm not dependent on a weapon for my jutsus to work. Haku calmly stated. No, you're just dependent on water, which isn't here. But I have all the air I need. Temari swung her fan. Wind-style cyclone shuriken jutsu. A number of small whirlwinds formed and flew at Haku like frisbees. Haku quickly rushed to get a water skin she had kept on her kimono and opened it to spill out its content, using her free hand to make hand signs. Ice-style rushing ice wall jutsu. The water formed a giant wave that solidified and moved forward to crush Temari, but her wind attacks cut through it and shattered the ice wall like glass, covering the entire area between them. Weak move, Momochi-san. Although I am impressed you were able to block my attack so quickly. Temari complimented. Wasn't trying to block your attack. Haku said, confusing the wind wielder. I was trying to get myself something to work with here. She then made 4 hand signs. Ice-style cold shrapnel storm jutsu. All the pieces of broken ice on the ground suddenly fired at Temari and cut her good. Fortunately for her, her underwear stayed on and covered everything, but her left bra strap did snap. Not bad, Momochi-san, but not good enough. Temari said after the attack ended. Using her thumb, she took some blood from her cuts and wiped it on her fan, creating 3 lines with it. Wind-style swift weasel jutsu. Swinging her fan, she summoned 3 weasels that rode the wind towards Haku. Unable to block, Haku had to carefully dodge the animals as they came at her, showing just how nimble she was in the process. One of the weasels did hit her and put a few cuts on her left leg. And since it was a summoned attack, it could cause continuous damage as long as the weasel stayed there. Haku batted the weasel off and it disappeared, but the other 2 turned around and came at her from behind, giving her a few more cuts. While Haku was getting rid of them, Temari ran up and started fighting Haku directly, using what little taijutsu she knew. With the weasels gone, Haku retaliated with some taijutsu of her own. Alright. Catfight, predictably went through the minds of several men and even a few women. Away from the stadium, Jiraiya suddenly got rigid and looked up. "I'm sensing something in the perverseness," he said quite sagely. "Not now, Jiraiya, we've got work to do," Orochimaru told him. "Fine, but I know I'm missing something good," the Toad Sage said before going back to the task at hand. Back with the girls, a few fists were thrown and some kicks were made, and some acrobatic jumps and dodged gave everyone a good show of their skills, especially the men. But Temari backed off and grabbed her fan again and got ready to do another jutsu. Everyone could tell it was about to end really quickly, but they still couldn't tell just who would win. "Proctor, I give," Haku called out while panting and sweating, catching Temari off guard. "I've had enough, I give." "Okay, winner by forfeit, Temari Sabaku." The crowd cheered, most of the loudest ones being men who also got hit by the girls around them, as Temari and Haku put their damaged clothes back on. "I'm glad I brought a spare set," Haku told herself. As they walked away, she smiled friendly at the Suna Kunoichi. "Good match, Temari. Had I not dropped out, you probably would have crushed me." "What do you mean, probably? I so would have won for sure." Haku playfully shrugged. "Go ahead and tell yourself that. And yes, I remember the deal. You can have your turn with him first. I'll hold you to that," Temari replied happily. "But I promise you won't have to wait too long, if I can help it." "So, what do you think of that match?" Yamato asked, almost like he was afraid to ask. "Yes, what does everyone think of that match?" the Kazekage repeated in a dangerous tone, validating Yamato's anxiety. "I'd say they both showed a lot of talent and diligence if not a lot of modesty," Tsunade stated, being the only one here who could provide a safe answer since she was a woman. "I must admit, the ice user looked like she had a lot more variety in her skills than your daughter did, Kazekage-sama," Sarutobi told the leader of Suna. "My daughter didn't want to reveal too much so she'd have some secrets in her next fight," the Kazekage answered. Tsunade struggled to not laugh. "If you ask me, the only secret she's got left is whether or not she's wearing Victoria's Secret." Yamato couldn't help but laugh a little with her, but wisely shut up before the Kazekage did anything. Down in the infirmary of the stadium, Kiba was laying on a bed being treated for burns. The medic ninja had already used several burn relief jutsu and applied gauze to his tender skin. Now he just had to wait for his body to recover on its own. Akamaru sat down on his lap being petted while licking Kiba's other hand. Kiba himself was looking out the window. Next to his bed his father sat down with his partner Shiramaru, a large white wolf-like dog. Gao Inazuka was not exactly what most people expected when they thought of Kiba's father, at least not at first glance. Like how Kiba took after his mother appearance-wise, Gao actually looked more like a bearded male version of his daughter Hana. He was also a veterinarian who was teaching Hana all he knew about his work. Kiba and his father did have the same eyes and their voices were similar, but aside from that they barely looked alike at all. "You okay, son?" Gao asked. "Yeah, I guess. I'm a bit sore that I lost, but he did it fair and square. And I'm glad Akamaru got out of it unharmed." "That's good. So you're not going to challenge this guy for a rematch after the exams?" "Doesn't seem to be a point. I can't beat any of these music note guys except for one girl and she was on her cycle at the time." Gao arched an eyebrow. "Why does that matter?" Kiba shrugged. "I dunno. What exactly is that you're referring to?" "The fact that you mentioned her cycle. It sounds like you felt you only won because of an arbitrary reason rather than your own strength. That's no different than saying you lost because you had something in your eyes. It's just an excuse," Gao told him. Shiramaru nodded in agreement. Kiba sighed. "I just wish there was someone I could feel I was stronger than in a fair fight where a technicality can't be used." "Why? Because you, Oka-san, Nei-san, those music notes guys, my team, all seem to be able to either beat me and make it look so easy, or say there's something that hindered one of us so it didn't count as a real victory. Kiba explained. You guys are older and more experienced than me. Sasuke had his bloodline then lost it, so now he's weaker and that gives him a technicality if he loses, and Sakura is so feeble it's no challenge at all. I had hoped that these music note guys would put up a good fight and I could win and show everyone I don't need a loophole to do so, but the one time I do win, the girls got an excuse for losing, so I still achieve nothing I'm trying to. I see. Now tell me, son, why is this so important to you? Is this how you want to measure your strength? Gao asked. That, and I want to impress others. Kiba admitted. Impress others? Yeah. You always said you were able to beat dozens of guys in one-on-one matches and could count the number of times you lost on one hand. I wanted to be able to claim that too. And since Oka-san always said that was one of the things she liked most about you, I figured it would attract girls for me too. Gao just sat there silently for a few seconds, wondering what to say here. Son, I think I see what you're getting at. You want others to respect you as a great warrior, right? Kiba nodded. You think if you can prove your strength, men will respect you and girls will want to date you, right? Kiba nodded again. Sure, it sounds like a good idea, but there's one problem with that. What's that? Kiba asked. Son, I was much like you when I was younger. We may not look alike, but I see a lot of my younger self in you. When I was your age, I was a bit of a show-off and flirt myself. I wanted to be seen as top dog too by my peers. I thought I'd have them looking up to me the way a pack looks up to its alpha. But after a while, I discovered I was making a big mistake. You see, that's how it works within the Inuzuka clan. It doesn't however work as well outside it. It doesn't? Kiba asked. Gao shook his head. Nope. In fact, sometimes it often has the opposite effect we aim for. In our clan, you earn the respect of the men by proving you're a more effective combatant, and you earn the admiration of the women by proving you're a good provider and defender. But people outside the Inuzuka live by different rules and customs. Most men see a guy who wants to show off his strength as just a show-off, and most women see that same guy as a narcissist. But, you did manage to get Oka-san, so it must work, right? Kiba asked. Sure, it worked, but your mother is a member of the clan, so she was looking for someone like me. But the other girls I was trying to woo before I got together with her weren't Inuzuka, so they didn't have the same standard she did. Gao told him. Take it from my experience, Kiba, don't go through life expecting everyone to live by your rules. If you want to have a girlfriend from outside the clan, try not to act like she should have to give you her attention. That's not how I got your mother. Would you like to know how I did get her interested in me? Wasn't it your winning streak? Kiba asked. Nope, she actually didn't learn that until after we started dating. Gao corrected. You know how her partner Kuramaru needs an eye patch? Who do you think treated his wound? Kiba gasped. You did? Gao nodded. Yep. Before then, your mother actually thought I was a wimp. After all, I may have been a good fighter, but she didn't know that and only saw me as the man who's rather tend the injured rather than go out and fight. But Kuramaru had been hurt and he needed help right away. I tended his eye and a few other wounds he had too, and she was very grateful to me. After that she accepted an offer to go out and have fun with me, then found out I was stronger than she gave me credit for. Kiba was aghast. He had always assumed that his father had to be quite a ladies' man to attract the attention of a woman like Tsum Inuzuka. And he assumed if it worked for his father, it would work for him too. To hear this, blew his mind. Gao placed his hand on his son's shoulder. You'll find the right girl when the time comes, son, and you'll gain respect for your strength and victories too as you gain more experience. Just try not to have such a one-sided view on both and you'll do fine. Kiba slowly nodded, still looking like he had a lot to think about. Thanks Ota-san. Next match, Isaribi Meikai vs Shino Aburame. Genma called out. In no time the young bug user and the swimming enthusiast were down in the arena awaiting the signal to begin. But not without her giving Naruto a hug and hearing him wish her good luck. Shino offered no pre-battle words or claims to his opponent, just stood there with his hands in his pockets. Yet the way he stood showed he was not taking this lightly. This was the girl who took down his class's Rookie of the Year without even using jutsu after all. Sure, Sasuke was at a big disadvantage and maybe he didn't truly deserve that title, but the fact remained that Sasuke was not powerless and this girl could easily make several of Shino's methods ineffective if he didn't act quick enough. Isaribi got into her Asayataki stance armed with a trench knife in each hand. Her arms were crossed in front of her making an X shape and her left leg was in front of her right, which supported most of her weight. The stance made it very easy for her to spring forward to attack or to the side to dodge as well as attack in either case. Shino's one comfort was that she didn't have a scroll in hand to flood the arena with, but he did see one hanging on the right side of her belt. If I can just get that away from her, I have the terrain advantage. Shino thought. Ready? Begin. Genma called out. Shino immediately sent out a swarm of his insects to do something about Isaribi's scroll. The purple-haired girl responded by throwing her trench knives to the ground by her feet and performing 4 hand signs then placing them flat on the ground before her. Earth-style inverted earth dome jutsu. The ground between the two genins suddenly sank and turned concave, like a meteor had hit it and left a crater. It wasn't too deep, by Shino's estimation the center of it was no deeper than 12 meters, yet he was fairly confident on what she had made this for. Fortunately for him, his bugs were unaffected by this since they were in the air and just about to reach her. What kind of defense is that? Many in the stands were thinking, not seeing the purpose of making a shallow pit that bugs could just fly over. Isaribi unhooked the scroll at her hip, but rather than open it, she just tossed it over the pit towards Shino. Since the bugs were ordered to get to the scroll and destroy it before it could be used, they turned around and went right to it, catching it in the air and attempting to tear it to pieces. While this went on, Isaribi pulled out a scroll that had been in her pocket, unseen until now. It was a decoy. She knew what I would do. Shino thought. He tried commanding his swarm to ignore the scroll they had and return to get her, but it was too late. Isaribi opened her scroll and unsealed a large amount of water that began to quickly fill up the pit she had created. Shino did manage to get his swarm to ignore the scroll they were destroying and head to her, but she countered that by jumping into the water. And as she expected, Shino's insects had many uses, but they couldn't swim. Shino looked at her while his swarm hovered over the rising water, trying to see how he could salvage the situation. Okay, she's got to come up for air sometime, but when she does she's going to be completely wet and if my beetles get their wings wet they won't be able to help anymore. Maybe they'll have some time to consume a bit of her chakra, but in that amount of time she could attack me directly. It all hinges on whether or not her ability to actually attack me depends on if I'm near the water or not. If it is, then as long as I stay away from the water she can't harm me any more than I can harm her. But if it isn't and she can use water jutsus to attack me from her position, then I'm not going to do well here. Underwater, Isaribi stopped the seal from releasing any more water once the pit was full enough. After that, she unsealed an oxygen mask and put it over her mouth and nose. Oxygen masks designed for aquatic ninjas never came with air tanks like scuba divers used. Instead, they came with several small seals on the inside that periodically released bits of air for the diver's convenience, usually good for a consecutive time of 30 minutes. Now Isaribi was completely at her leisure to fight without Shino's bugs getting her. Now Shino may have been at a disadvantage here, but he wasn't without idea. He saw her fight in the preliminaries and thus spent the past month working on a way to get around her water methods. If I could just get her out of the water, then I'd stand a chance. So how do I do that? Shino saw one obvious option, and knew it was a risk, but it was his best shot. Shino ordered his swarm to leave the air above the makeshift pond and he himself walked out onto it. Once in the center, he just stood there, but his hands were no longer in his pockets. What's he planning? Isaribi and several watchers asked themselves. Shino suddenly raised his arms, then thrust them down back at his sides quickly. No one else could see a purpose to this, but Isaribi saw two objects descending down at her into the water. She tried to back away, but being in water meant she had some resistance to sudden movements. Fortunately that same resistance applied to what Shino threw at her, so she got away with only some cuts rather than real wounds. A quick look showed Shino apparently had a set of larger than normal kunai hidden in both sleeves that were now embedded in the ground where Isaribi had been. Both missed her but cut her legs when she got out of the way. Clever trick, pal. Now it's my turn. Isaribi pulled the kunais out, clasped her hands together with them both pointing forward, and crouched down. Tactic 3 Dolphin Bite. She then sprang up with a lot of speed, rushing at the Aburame air. She burst out of the water right in front of Shino, looking like she was about to stab him. He defended himself by ducking towards his right side in a flexible way most never would have expected of him. As Isaribi dove over where he had been, he straightened up with his left elbow pointed out and hit her in the ribs quite hard. The purple-haired girl winced and her trajectory was affected, making her land with a belly flop on the water. Even for her that hurt. During her brief moment of incoherency, Shino grabbed a hold of her arms and held them behind her against her back while he pulled out a short sword his sensei had given him and held to the back of her neck. Had enough? He asked. My bugs may not be able to effectively harm her anymore, but I still can. With only one of his hands holding her own in place, Isaribi managed to struggle enough to get one of her hands free and into her supply pouch. Shino couldn't stop her without releasing her and his swarm couldn't reach her in time. She pulled out a small black ball and threw it in his face. The ball broke and ink sprayed all over his high collar, glasses, and some skin too, effectively blinding him. Tactic 4 Octopus Bite. In his confusion, Isaribi struggled completely free and swam to the side of the makeshift pond where she left her trench knives earlier. She grabbed them and came back to Shino, who had removed his glasses to see better. She used her knives to cut his legs before diving back underwater. The cuts stung but they wouldn't hinder him. Shino sheathed his sword but pulled back the sleeve on his left arm, showing he had a senbon launcher concealed as well. Pulling the trigger, he set off a wave of needles into the water that flew with a lot more force than his sword attacks from earlier had too. Many hit Isaribi, none in lethal places, but the water around her became a bit red. Isaribi ignored the pain as best she could, put away her trench knives, and made 3 hand signs. Water-style seas at storm jutsu. All of a sudden the water in the basin became turbulent and constantly waving and splashing around, as if a large amount of wind was brewing overhead. And it got worse as it continued, until it truly resembled a sea during a storm. With that, Shino found it difficult to remain standing on top the water and fell in before he could get away. And if that wasn't bad enough, Aburames were not the best swimmers around, due to the unique physiology of their bodies. Under the water, there was a current he struggled against to get back to the surface, and he couldn't see Isaribi. When he did, she was apparently going along with the current until it took her to him, her trench knives back in hand ready to cut him again. The current soon brought her towards him, and as she approached she stretched both arms out with her trench knives pointed inward, as if she planned a pincer move with them when he was in her range. Tactic 5 Crab Bite. Shino heard her say. With only one idea in mind, Shino gathered all the chakra he could for the water walking exercise and practically rocketed himself out of the water and back onto the land. Once on terra firma he coughed and was surrounded by his swarm, concerned for their host. Isaribi's pond calmed down and she stuck her head out of the water to see what Shino would do next. After a moment to compose himself, Shino stood back up. "Proctor, I surrender. I can do no more to her now." Genma accepted this. Winner by forfeit, Isaribi Meikai. Several cheers went out for the swimming enthusiast, the loudest being from her team. Isaribi sealed away her water and even unsealed 2 towels to dry off with, one of which she gracefully handed to Shino. "Here you go. No hard feelings, right?" He nodded. "Yes. To be honest, I never really thought I would win against you. I just wanted to see how well I could do before I couldn't do any more. Now I know my limitations." "Thank you." "No problem. And I must say you have pretty eyes," Isaribi added, giggling when she saw he was blushing. "Don't think about it too much, I'm seeing someone anyway. But for a moment there, when you had me pinned down, you actually might have won." "Too bad I didn't," Shino said without regret. "I personally wasn't that impressed with either of them, if I do say so myself." The Kazekage told his fellow village leaders. "I can understand regarding the girl, but I saw a good deal of improvising from the Aburame." Sarutobi politely countered. Most members of his clan use only clan methods to do their OBS. He knew that wouldn't work here, so he tried something new. Which is important for our young shinobi to learn and grow into stronger fighters. I'll concede that to you, Hokage-sama, but he didn't seem to really put up much of a fight in my opinion. It felt more like he was just winging it since he couldn't use his specialty. Kazekage replied. Sarutobi made a thoughtful hum in response. "I'm actually more bothered by the girl. Sure, she proved to be exceptional on her own turf, but so far she looks to be completely dependent on the presence of water in order to fight. Hardly Chunin material if you ask me. We'll find out later if she can handle fights outside of water." Yamato commented. "I have a feeling that after fighting this match this way, her next opponent will be prepared for that, and she knows that, so she'll have to try something new. We'll have to see about that then," Sarutobi stated. Next match, Dosu Kinyuta vs Hinata Hibiki. Genma called out. Naruto leaned towards Hinata before she could go down into the arena. "Hina-chan, I know you'll do well, but please keep your clothes on." She warmly smiled. "Don't worry. I don't intend to give anybody a free show. I'm not even sure why those two did. That wasn't very professional of them." Naruto shrugged. "We'll just have to ask them later. You better get going before you're late." Hinata nodded and hurried down, with Dosu doing the same. Dosu wasn't as worried about this match as he had been when it was called a month ago. Naruto told him he wouldn't make it personal if Hinata got hurt, and Hinata said she didn't want him afraid to fight his best because of Naruto and she'd keep him in line if he acted out. The two stood in their designated stops and faced each other. The Hyuga looked on with the most interest here, hoping Hinata would need medical attention when this was over so they could take her away with few if any people noticing. They also hoped to see if they could figure out any secrets about her unique fighting style as they watched. Niji probably had the most interest out of all the Hyuga, but ironically he didn't have it for the same reason as the rest of his clan. The clan was fixated on making sure Hinata was under their control so she and her village could never use their power against them being the clan not Konoha, and so she and her family would not give the Hyuga a bad name elsewhere in the world. But as far as Niji was concerned, acquiring her would just be acquiring one more nobody, and no matter how unique her fighting style may be, it was still in the developing stages, whereas the Jukin had been perfected over generations. She got lucky because he had expected different from her, but in his eyes, if he fought her again, she would fall before him without a struggle. Oh, the lies the proud tell themselves to stay proud. "Ready? Begin," Genma declared. "Byakugan," Hinata said, activating her Dojutsu and got into her Suradokan stance, which resembled that of a samurai holding a sword, but her hands were empty and stretched out. Dosu got into his own stance, which was mainly him crouching forward, making him look a lot like a lion ready to pounce. His left hand held all his upper body weight so he could freely move his covered right hand when he needed to. Hinata made the first move, trying to close the gap. This will be tough since we're both close-range fighters, but he doesn't need to even touch me to affect me. My best bet is to hit him before he can hit me and stick it out if I am hit. She ran up to him ready to hit him with a Suridoken strike. Dosu held his right arm out in front of him defensively, knowing if she struck the gauntlet instead it would hurt her more than it would hurt him. Hinata instead placed both palms on the ground and swung on them to her left side, delivering a roundhouse kick to Dosu's back. The main genin involuntarily dived forward upon contact but caught himself and flipped over, standing straight up when he landed. Melody gauntlet high-pitched screech. A sound like a siren was made and everyone who heard it covered their ears. To Dosu's surprise, Hinata didn't. What the? Oh, she must have put ear plugs in place just before she came down here. That'll help her, but it won't stop all my attacks. Dosu ended his attack, much to the relief of the audience. Hinata ran up to him and tried to hit his tenketsu. She found it wasn't that easy since Dosu was wearing armor under his clothes to act as a barrier to her attacks. The armor couldn't stop her strikes, but it did make them less effective. It also limited his movements so he couldn't effectively fight her back. With Hinata being close to him, Dosu attempted to get a few hits on her by throwing some punches and kicks in. It was going fine but not good enough for his tastes, so he added something extra when he got his right arm right in front of Hinata's face. Melody gauntlet sonic boom. A huge sudden burst of sound erupted from his gauntlet with the force of a cannon, hitting Hinata in point-blank range. The force of the attack sent her flying back far enough that she almost collided with the wall surrounding the arena, landing on her stomach. Oh crap, please tell me I didn't kill her. Naruto's going to kill me. Dosu told himself quietly. Hinata painfully struggled to get up, her arms and legs protesting her movements. Her head pounded and she was certain her ears were bleeding now that her earplugs had gotten dislodged. And were probably lying scattered in the arena. Her Byakugan was still active, so even with her eyes clenched she could still see that so far Dosu had yet to approach her. If she waited too long, he'd change his mind and continue his attacks. Using as much strength as she could, Hinata pushed herself onto her feet as soon as she saw Dosu run to keep fighting her. 5 trigrams acupuncture assault. She said before striking him with many blows, looking like a normal Hyuga would in fighting. But there was a big difference here. When Hyugas attack, they generally use a fixed number of strikes and/or in a specific order to get a specific result. This attack threw order out the window and allowed Hinata to strike wherever she wanted in whatever order she wanted and however many times. The downside was that this meant the result could either be pleasurable or excruciating, based on sheer chance. Pleasurable if all the strikes happened to cancel each other out, and excruciating if they didn't. Hinata had no way of knowing for sure what the result would be. She finished to avoid wearing her arms out too soon in the match and stepped back. Dosu was stiff but loosened up and even stretched his limbs a bit, overall looking a bit relaxed. Apparently Hinata's attack had the helpful result rather than the harmful. Damn, I'm going to have to hit harder now, but I don't want to give anything away to those nosy Hyugas. I may have to chance it. She crossed her arms in front of herself forming an X, but her expression showed she wasn't hiding. 5 trigrams sword and club confusion. She thrust her arms forward and moved to attack him yet again. Dosu tried deflecting her blows but was having little luck. Damn, I better use that technique Kabuto-sensei taught me before I lose all my chakra here. He made one hand sign. Leech palm jutsu. His left hand became covered in chakra and he used that to hit her while using his armored right arm to block her blows. The Hyugas watching were confused by what they saw through their Byakugans. This is quite unusual. The defiant girl has both her hands tipped with chakra, but they aren't the same. The right ends with sharp points and the left end with blunt points. What does she hope to accomplish with such an awkward combination? Not to mention that the covered-up boy has a chakra-covered hand too, which moves inwardly as if they were suction behind it. Hinata felt her chakra being taken from her a few times already. If Dosu kept this up, she'd run out before she made him bleed his own, unless her current jutsu worked first. Her technique, sword and club confusion, was a combination of the Juken and Suridoken. The sword was the Suridoken, used to open the Tenketsu, while the club was the Juken, used to close them. Used at the same time like this resulted in an attack that repeatedly opened and closed chakra points on a person over and over again. The result was the entire chakra network would be thrown into array and shut down, leaving no ability to mold chakra or perform jutsu, with an added bonus of the remaining open tenketsu still bleeding out chakra. So far Hinata's technique was working perfectly, but there was a setback. Dosu blocked most of her hits he could with his melody gauntlet, primarily her left-handed hits. Each hit triggered a small sonic blast as an automatic defense, which left a numb feeling in her fingers and a ringing in her ears. She couldn't afford to hit harder or let Dosu use it since she had yet to regain her earplugs, and if he kept blocking this way, her balance would falter and she'd have a hard time keeping chakra in her fingers for a time. To put it simply, the two were quite evenly matched right then. There. That should take care of everything we wanted to do beforehand. Jiraiya said, wiping some sweat out of his eyes. Now what do we do? We wait for the signal from Tsunade. Orochimaru told him. By the way, where did Kushina and Subsonic go? Orochimaru smiled. They're where they want to be for this little event. The two genin had to cease their attacks briefly to rest their arms and catch their breaths. Hinata was the more physically worn out, but her chakra levels were fine to continue. Dosu however was physically better with more stamina, but his chakra levels were dramatically lessened. Hinata was breathing heavier than Dosu also. Dosu planted his right hand on the ground. Melody gauntlet heavy bass blast. A sound wave went right through the ground and up Hinata's body from her feet. She felt like her internal organs were rattling around inside her, and with her balance already affected she collapsed on her right side. Ugh, do I look as nauseous as I feel? I swear I gotta throw up. She told Herslef as she struggled back to her feet. Sorry Hinata, nothing personal. Dosu stated before recreating the leech palm and placing it on her back. He was still bleeding chakra from her hits, but this helped stabilize him a little bit. Hinata then surprised him by reaching up and grabbing his shirt collar, pulling him closer to her face. What the? She looks like she's about to kiss him, but I know she'd rather drink out of the toilet than do that. Isaribi thought. She and Naruto and the other selected girls watched this intensely. Hinata pulled Dosu's face close to her own, and then vomited all over him. In mere moments Dosu was covered in it and had to step back. Ah yuck! He yelled as he tried to wipe the stuff off of him. I don't know if I should be relieved or grossed out. Naruto thought, but he did lightly smile nonetheless. Enko struggled not to laugh. Atta girl. Oh, that's so disgusting. Sakura said, looking away. With Dosu distracted, Hinata got up to her feet, holding her stomach and wiping her mouth. I hope that was everything. He's not going to fall for that a second time. She came up to him and readied herself. 5 trigrams 64 needles. She moved like a normal Hyuga would, striking first twice, then 4 times, then 8 times, then 16 times, then 32 times, and finally 64 times. Dosu took them all with his melody gauntlet barely providing any cover that time, and fell backwards. He could still move, and now with his face cleaned he could see again, but he was on his last legs. Damn. I've probably got enough left for one last attack. Do I go for it, or play dead and accept defeat? Genma watched on, waiting for any sign the maned Oto Genin would be able to get back up. He saw the boy struggle, but he couldn't seem to lift himself anymore. Dosu Kinyuta is unable to continue. Winner, Hinata Hibiki. Many cheers went out for the white-eyed girl, but none of them came from the Hyugas. Not that she cared in the slightest what they thought. Hinata smiled at her boyfriend and made a V with her fingers, which he returned. That was pretty impressive if I do say so myself. The Kazekage told his fellow village leaders. I like how she turned his attack against him. Tsunade commented. What do you mean by that? Yamato asked. It's obvious those sound attacks made her nauseous, so she made sure to put him in a place where she could use that upset feeling as an advantage rather than a disadvantage. Quite clever and unexpected if you ask me, albeit a bit unorthodox, but hey, ninjas are supposed to fight dirty. Yamato chuckled. Yeah, and that was quite dirty. Outside that, I'm surprised someone with a Byakugan raised outside of Konoha could fight so well. Sarutobi noted, curious on what the Oto representative would say on the matter. She's had quite some time to train in this unique style, given the generations before her. Yamato said, well aware of the cover for Hinata's background. The truth was Hinata, Hanabi, and Naruto with his Neo-Byakugan were the first ones learning the Suridoken. Hitomi had come up with the theory behind it, and showed them some moves based off the Juken to use it with, but true credit for creating the Suridoken went to the 3 kids who trained in it for 10 years by now. Her presence has caused quite a commotion in the Hyuga clan this past month. Sarutobi added. I can imagine so. I already had to arrest one of them for trying to abduct her, as per the international Chunin exam laws. Now the clan is asking for a way to trade for her. Yamato and Tsunade arched an eyebrow, but only Yamato actually looked at the Hokage. Trade for her? As in I give you her if you give me one of your ninja? Would you be interested? The old man asked. Oh, that was a bad thing to say, sensei. Tsunade told herself, struggling to not hit something right then. Hypothetically speaking, if I were to agree to such a thing, who would I gain in exchange? And how would this help the girl's clan back home? Yamato asked to see what the old man's answer would be. He had no intention of making such a deal, but he felt this would be good blackmail material for later. Well, how does the last Uchiha in Konoha sound to you? What's your angle, sensei? Tsunade asked herself. I know the spoiled brat is useless in your eyes now, but as far as you know no one else outside Konoha knows he's without the Sharingan. Surely you know offering him would look suspicious, or are you and this village truly giving up on him? Judging from the look on Yamato's face, she could tell he was thinking along similar lines. Why would you be willing to give away an heir to such an important clan, for any reason? And you still have yet to explain how this benefits the girl or her own clan. Why should the Hyuga benefit here but not the Hibiki? Well, I'm certain the girl can get more informed training regarding her eyes and ancestry if she came here, and her clan could feel safe knowing the rest of the Hyuga would not hunt them down and eliminate them out of spite if this happened. As for the heir, wouldn't a small village such as yours love to be able to say you have member of such a prosperous clan in your ranks? Sarutobi explained smoothly, talking like a true politician. Oh, that is complete crap. Tsunade thought, spoken like someone who listened to a true politician. So would you accept the offer? Sarutobi asked. Yamato waved him off. I was speaking hypothetically, Hokage-sama. I alone cannot make such a decision, especially without consulting the Hibikis. At least keep it in mind, will you? Oh, I will. Excuse me please, but I need to go use the restroom and get another drink while I'm at it. Tsunade said as she stepped out of the Kage box. Hinata wobbled up to her team, still smiling and feeling a bit sick to her stomach. I better brush my teeth soon or I won't be able to kiss Naruto anytime soon. she thought before holding down another taste of bile. Before any of the Otonin could approach her, an Umbu agent did. "Excuse me, miss, but you don't look so well. You should probably go to the infirmary and get looked at. I can lead you if you don't know where it is." It was a good thing Hinata was queasy because she could not contain her groan. "Seriously? Someone actually thought I'd be stupid enough to accept this offer? I'm insulted." Kabuto showed up. "Thank you for the offer, but I'm this girl's physician, so I'll be checking her." The Umbu had to pause to think up a good reply. In that time, Kabuto tried to lead Hinata away. Seeing he was about to lose his chance, the Umbu resorted to blurting something out. It would be better for her to see a real physician. Kabuto frowned and adjusted his glasses. "Sir, do not mock my skills in caring for the ninja from my own village, and do not interfere with matters that do not concern you. All she likely has is a case of nausea with disbalance, easily treatable outside an infirmary. Let me do my job in peace and go back to your own." The Umbu's expression could not be seen through the mask, but Kabuto was certain he was annoyed. "Very well." He then disappeared in a leaf shushin. "He was probably sent by the Hyugas or the Hokage to abduct me, wasn't he?" Hinata asked, more for confirmation than for an answer. "Highly likely. Fortunately he could not do that without causing a fuss." Kabuto replied. "Now lay down and I'll see what I can do." Final match of the first round. "Would Gaara Sabaku and Rock Lee please come down here?" Genma called out. "Damn, my voice is getting tired from all this announcing. I sure wish Hayate-san didn't have that indigestion today so he could do this as scheduled. Or for that matter that I hadn't been in Hokage-sama's office when he found out Hayate needed a replacement. Just my luck." The two named genin came down into the arena, Gaara by using a sand shunshin and Lee by jumping over the edge of the wall that separated the arena from the stadium seats. Gaara's gourd was uncorked and he looked ready to fight. Lee stretched his legs and arms and looked ready to prove himself. He's supposed to be a fast target and a heavy hitter, and from what Subsonic-san told me he is incapable of performing jutsu for some reason. I suspect my san may have difficulty at times with apprehending him, but I shouldn't have too much trouble. The raccoon-eyed boy told himself. From what I saw in Tentanchan's match, he uses sand for attack and defense. And he has enough control over it to do multiple things with it. But he looks slow and not accustomed to taking hits. If I can land a few good hits to him directly, I will surely win. The green-clad genin thought. "Ready? Begin." Genma called out. "I must strike now before he calls his sand out to block me with." Lee thought as he ran up to Gaara to hit him with a solid punch. He pulled his right fist back then threw it forward to hit Gaara roughly around the collarbone region, but sand came out of the gourd immediately to block it. The sand, it moved almost as if it were alive. Lee thought, amazed by the absolution of the defensive properties the sand displayed. He pulled his arm back before the sand could engulf his hand. As Lee back away, Gaara had his sand pour out of his gourd and cover the ground around him, spreading out to give him a vast amount to use right away. Lee was cautious, knowing this would limit his chances of landing any hits on his opponent. When the sand stopped spreading, it rose up to create a field of spikes pointing in all directions. He has quite a defense built up to prevent close attacks, but leaves himself open to ranged attacks. Lee analyzed, seeing Gaara still standing where he did before with his arms crossed. He looks as if he's testing me, like he wants to see my reaction. Well, I won't disappoint him, that's for sure. Lee didn't usually carry weapons on him, preferring his body be his weapon itself. But this was the Chunin exams and he had to come prepared. He reached into his weapon pouch and pulled out a few kunai before throwing them at Gaara. A wall of sand rose to provide cover while Lee ran over the sand spikes to get closer. Gaara waved his arms to make the spikes move in an attempt to hit him. As I suspected, his control is not limited to one action at a time. He is a worthy opponent. Lee thought as he nimbly dodged the sand skewers coming from all directions. His dodges made him look like an acrobat, and he made sure to punch or kick a few of them to avoid actually being hit. The sand he hit crumbled, but the points always reformed. In no time Lee was close enough to jump over Gaara's sand wall and land behind him. Once Lee landed, Gaara turned around and threw his own fist, hitting Lee in the jaw. Temari, Kankuro, and the Kazekage watched that in sheer surprise. Did that just happen? I've never seen Gaara actually attack someone directly like that. Lee's endurance made him able to withstand this attack easily, and he countered with his own hit to Gaara's face. Gaara's endurance wasn't as high and he faltered in his standing for a time before his sand held him upright. He hit Gaara? The other Chunin asked themselves. Gaara's face showed some cracks on it, confusing Lee. He looked carefully and saw grains of sand moving to repair the crack. He's wearing sand over his skin. Doesn't that hinder him or cost him a lot of chakra to maintain? Gaara threw another punch, but Lee was better at hand-to-hand combat than the Tsunade Jinchuriki was. Lee could tell this and settled for just blocking the hit. Why is he attacking me like this rather than with his preferred method? Is he testing himself too? Far be it for me to deny him a chance to improve his skills. Lee added a sideswipe kick with his left leg to test Gaara's reaction. A tendril of sand rose up and caught his leg before it could hit Gaara, and it would not let go. It covered his entire foot and shin, and felt like it was compressing tightly. Startled, Lee tried to hit it with his left fist to remove it, but the sand engulfed his left hand and forearm as well with a separate tendril and constricted around it. Two more rose up from the ground to trap his other limbs, effectively holding him in place spread eagle. Gaara grinned at seeing his opponent trapped. You'll make a good test subject for my new attack. He held out his right hand and sand came up into the palm, swirling around to create an orb that kept spinning. Sand Rasengan. Rasengan? Sarutobi asked himself. Naruto smiled. So you did create that technique you told me I gave you an idea for. Not bad, Gaara. Although your taijutsu still needs some work, but we'll work on that later. Gaara slammed the spinning sand ball into Lee's abdomen. The motion of the attack tore open his jumpsuit and greatly irritated his exposed skin before cutting it open. The damage ended there because the jutsu did too. Damn, I still can't maintain the form properly for more than a few seconds. Using pure chakra like Naruto does is so much easier than using a solid substance. Gaara thought. He then released Lee, who collapsed briefly but got back on his feet right away, covering his shallow wound as best he could. Lee groaned, hoping his wound wouldn't get infected. You're good. I guess I'll have to fight unrestrained then. He reached down into his orange leg warmers and pulled out several rods wrapped together. That's better. Now I can move much more freely. He then dropped them, and a very loud thud resulted in them hitting the ground, not to mention the two craters created by them. The impact even made some of Gaara's sand structures such as the nearby spikes and the wall Lee had jumped over collapse. Holy crap! He carries that much weight on him? And still can move that fast? Sakura asked, barely able to believe what her eyes told her. Almost everyone except Lee's team had similar thoughts. Gaara seemed aware of the implications of removing such weights and moved his sand to trap Lee right away. Lee ran around to behind Gaara, moving so far he was just a green blur. He ran fast enough that the sand spikes still surrounding Gaara crumbled before him, unable to hurt him at all. Once behind his opponent, the green-clad genin ran right at him for a sneak attack. Gaara turned around just moments before Lee could hit a blind spot. Lee performed a dynamic entry-style kick to Gaara's shoulder, knocking him forward. At the same time, he unwrapped some of his bandages from his arms and wrapped them around Gaara. The redhead boy couldn't escape and was tied up like one of Kankuro's puppets. Primary Lotus. Lee declared as he pulled Gaara's bound bod close to him and threw it up into the air with a solid kick. Once up he jumped up to join Gaara. Secondary Lotus. He proceeded to kick Gaara again to make his fall to the ground that much harder. His opponent ended up making another crater. How can someone not even using jutsu or weapons be able to do this to Gaara? Kankuro asked, astounded but also worried for his brother. Temari looked skeptical. This is too easy for him. Gaara must be holding back, letting him get a few hits in. If Gaara wasn't, this guy wouldn't be standing right now. Gaara, what are you planning? Lee landed on his feet like a cat and looked to see the extent of the damage he had caused. When he peered into the crater, he saw the bandages unfurl, but underneath them was not what he had expected to see. It was a hollow shell of sand that resembled Gaara but with many body parts broken off, especially the face. Did he use a substitution with the sand? Sand started to bubble up from the ground around him, then crumbled away to reveal Gaara, not looking too pleased. Is that all you can fight me with? A few kicks and punches? Do you not have more to offer? Even though Gaara was informed Lee could not use jutsu, he still hoped to see more out of the green-clad genin than just taijutsu alone. He wanted to see this guy's abilities before he went all out. Temari asked herself. Is that why he used some direct moves himself too? To test this guy's reactions? Probably not the best idea. Otuto. Gaara extended his right hand then swept it from sand shuriken. Discs of sand emerged from the ground and flew right towards Lee. The green-clad genin easily dodged them but many more shot out, forcing him to stay on the move. Sorry I took so long. I couldn't find any sake right away. Tsunade said as she returned to the Kage box with a sake-filled gourd in her hand. Did I miss anything good? Nothing much. The boy from Suna is putting up a good fight and seems to have the boy from Konoha on the ropes. Yamato answered. He better win. Sarutobi thought in regards to Lee. He's the only genin from Konoha left. If he doesn't advance, it'll reflect badly on us. But I can't just disqualify the Kazekage's son without legitimate reason. Nor can I just promote the genin that did participate just for show. This must not be a good year for Konoha. I only hope it doesn't get worse. Orochimaru. A slug the size of a house cat said as it appeared before the snake Sannin. I bring word from Tsunade-sama. Is it time? Jiraiya asked. Just about. The last match of the first round is underway. She recommends beginning before the second round can commence. Orochimaru nodded. That's what I intended all along. Anything else? Yes, you may find this of interesting note. The Hokage has actually requested your substitute to trade genin between the villages. Specifically, the Hokage wants you to give young Hinata to Konoha and would give you the last Uchiha in exchange. Orochimaru glared but not at the slug. Oh, your ass is going to be kicked for that, sensei. Jiraiya nodded. Agreed. Sure, we know the Uchiha will regain his Sharingan soon enough, but they don't. So what he's planning is, in his eyes, a completely one-sided beneficial trade. Exactly. That's one more insult too many to the people we care about. Orochimaru stated, earning another nod from his teammate. He looked at the slug. There's probably no way to inform Tsunade-chan now to be ready without alerting the old man, so don't return to her just yet. We'll get ready to begin in a matter of moments. Understood, sir. The slug said before disappearing. So what are we waiting for? Jiraiya asked. Orochimaru smiled. The final preparation. And then we strike. Anko felt a sudden presence of weight in her left pocket and it started to move up her body under her clothes. She immediately recognized the feel as a summoned snake. Jizan must have a message. She told herself, showing no awareness of anything other than the fight in the arena she was watching. Careful to not be seen, the snake stopped before it could poke its head out from under her jacket. Orochimaru-sama says it's time to prepare the sedations. Anko barely smiled. Will do, she whispered, and the snake disappeared. Kabuto-kun, Kurenai-chan, we've got work to do. She whispered to them so no one would overhear them. Anko walked away first, then Kurenai followed but went in a different direction, and soon Kabuto walked away too. No one who saw thought anything of it. Sand kunai. Gaara called out, trying a new attack in hopes of hitting Lee. Spikes of sand formed from the ground around him and fired at the green-clad genin who had been dodging all of Gaara's methods so far but hadn't yet been able to return any attacks. Lee now was using a previously hidden set of nunchaku to deflect the sand projectiles. Damn it, it's almost like he doesn't know any jutsu other than taijutsu. I had hoped to impress Ota-sama here by showing some taijutsu I've bothered to learn and showing how my sand can work against enemy jutsus, but I can't do that here. I should just end this now. Gaara thought. You are a worthy opponent. Lee complimented. You are talented to keep up with me like this, but I grow bored. Gaara replied. He extended his right hand with an open fist, as if he was trying to grasp some sort of invisible bar. Sand coffin. Lee saw and felt a large amount of sand rise up around him and beneath him. He tried to jump away but the sand followed like a predator. Unable to dodge in midair, Lee tried to fight it but touching the sand only trapped him sooner. Quite quickly Lee was encased all the way up to his neck. He did this to Tenten-chan too. The sand is so compact I can't get out. Lee thought. I may have one way to escape though. Gai-sensei, do not be upset over what I must do. He closed his eyes briefly and everyone could feel his chakra spike. Gaara regained his interest, at least somewhat. Is he finally preparing something worth fighting against? First gate of opening open. Lee yelled as he began opening the 8 chakra gates, allowing his chakra to surge throughout his entire body and strengthen his muscles. The sand around him started to crack and break off but it still held. Second gate of rest open. Lee said as he continued his last resort. Now the sand struggled even more to contain the taijutsu enthusiast. Anko, Kurenai, and Kabuto watched this with interest from the roof of the stadium. If this keeps up, he may harm Gaara. We need him unharmed to make this work as well as we want it to, along with Naruto and Fu. We should probably get started now then. Ready? Kurenai asked. Anko and Kabuto nodded. Let's do this thing. All three of them began a set of hand signs. Sand burial. Gaara said, closing his fist in an effort to restrain Lee further. I'm not sure if this will kill him or not, but it should knock him out or stop whatever he's doing. Besides, it's likely he would have been a casualty soon anyway. The sudden increase in pressure from the sand began to get to Lee and he knew if he didn't get out soon he was going to be crushed to death. Third gate of life open. His chakra practically surged around him like a storm and his skin turned red with bulging veins in random places. A closer look and one would swear his pupils disappeared too. Screaming, Lee was finally able to shatter the sand encasement around him despite Gaara's expert control of it. But he didn't move right away. Rather he momentarily stood still, as if getting used to this surge of power. During that one moment, something unexpected happened. Feathers started to fall over the entire area. Gaara smiled. It's time. The invasion was now underway. What is the meaning of this? Sarutobi asked when he saw a genjutsu being applied to the stadium. People unprepared for this, and there were quite a few of those, were caught in it and forced to fall asleep. Most of these were civilians and nobles, the types who couldn't recognize a genjutsu even if their lives depended on it because they had no training for it. Most of the ninja saw it begin to take effect but only half of them at most could stop it from affecting them. They would need the other half to get them out of it right away. Tsunade smiled. Belated justice, sensei. That certainly drew Sarutobi's attention away from the developing crisis. What the? Are you in on this, Tsunade? The slug Sannin grinned at him and cracked her knuckles. More than you might imagine, you lousy bastard. It was hard to tell what was more disturbing for Sarutobi, her words or the way she was saying them. Tsunade didn't look or sound angry aside from making a fist. Nope, she looked like she was going to enjoy this more than she enjoyed drinking. Sarutobi tried to stand up but he saw his body was bound down, particularly his wrists and feet. He looked and saw gold sand acting as shackles. What is going on here? The Yondaime Kazekage grinned, revealing the suddenly visible rings around his eyes. Payback, for what you've done and tried to do. And you're not the only one. We're getting a pound of flesh from old man. Yamato added. Umbu. Sarutobi shouted. We're under attack. The Kazekage used his gold dust to create a wall to buy them some time and keep the Umbu away. In the process this allowed Sarutobi to break free, but he didn't mind. He wanted the old man to put up a bit of a fight before they punished him. Yamato spoke into a hidden microphone in his faceplate. Guardians 2, 3, 4, and 5, my position now. Box us in. Guardian 1, provide them cover and bring you-know-who. Sarutobi jumped back and took off his Hokage robes, revealing his classical ninja outfit complete with armor. What is the meaning of all this? Looks like we're not the only ones who were prepared for a fight. Tsunade said, cracking her knuckles. Tsunade, explain yourself. What is going on here? Sarutobi sternly demanded. I told you, sensei, this is justice. You would betray your own village? Tsunade laughed. I haven't even set foot in Konoha for over a decade. How can you call this my village? Besides, I may have been born here, but this isn't my home. My home, and my allegiance, is Otogakure. Sarutobi narrowed his eyes at Yamato, who had discarded his Otokage robes in favor of an ordinary Jounin outfit. Otokage, you won't get away with this. Yamato chuckled. You're wrong about two things, old man. We will get away with this, and I'm not the real Otokage. He should be here right about now. With that, several figures got past Kazekage's gold dust barrier and landed by the three facing the old Hokage. 4 of these figures didn't stay long and got into a square position around the group, performing a rapid set of hand signs. As they did, one more figure and Yamato departed, leaving only 5 people before Sarutobi, including Tsunade and the Yondaime Kazekage. The old man could hardly believe what he was seeing. Jiraiya? Orochimaru? Kushina? The 3 aforementioned shinobi, standing beside Tsunade, all nodded, none looking happy. Hello, Sarutobi-sensei. Orochimaru said. You have no idea how much we're looking forward to this little reunion. Back in the arena, Lee appeared to be too active to fall victim to the genjutsu that was affecting everyone except those from Oto and Suna. Looks like I'll have to knock him out myself. Gaara thought as sand formed in his hands to form a spear with an odd-shaped head. Ultimate offense Shikaku spear. He said as it formed, then he threw it. The spear did knock Lee back, but it looked like it barely damaged him thanks to having 3 gates open. Lee acted like he was simply delayed and got ready to charge at the Suna genin. Again, completely unaware that an invasion was happening around him. The overwhelming chakra was probably the only reason the genjutsu hadn't affected him yet. When Lee took 2 steps, he suddenly fell face first on the ground with a heavy thud, leaving an imprint of his body in the ground. Gaara's eyes widened. What the hell? Naruto showed up next to him. Sorry to interfere like that, but there's no point in wasting time here. We've got serious fights to do. Gaara smiled and retracted all his sand. Thanks, old friend. Now let's go kick some serious ass. Naruto exclaimed before deactivating his gravity control, which he used to subdue Lee, then jumping away. Gaara followed, and so did the others in their group. Up in the stands, Sakura had managed to break free of the genjutsu before it took full effect on her, but she didn't see a lot of people around her that had been as lucky. She got up and ran to her friends, who had escaped or been released from it by other ninja, but was stopped by Kakashi. Kakashi-sensei? Sakura, go to the infirmary and see if Kiba is active or not. Come back here with or without him after you find out, and then I'll tell you what to do. He ordered before turning around to fight an approaching Tsunade. Sakura silently nodded before running to where her teammate was supposed to be. Down in the hallway ahead of her, she heard some rough fighting going on. Sounds like a dog is involved, but it doesn't sound like Akamaru. Does the enemy have dogs too? She hid behind a corner and carefully looked around it, seeing an older man with Inuzuka marks and a large white dog fighting a ninja she didn't recognize and couldn't see any symbols on. Soon it looked like the enemy was about to win, so thinking quickly, Sakura pulled out a kunai and threw it at the foreign ninja's back. She meant to aim for his spine, but she instead hit the back of his neck. He jerked and grew rigid before the Inuzuka managed to land a lethal blow. Did I just kill someone? Sakura asked herself, starting to breath heavily. I did. I'm a murderer. Thanks for your help. The Inuzuka called out. Sakura stepped forward. Don't thank me, I'm a murderer. She sounded like she expected to have her head chopped off for this. The Inuzuka shook his head. Do you know what the difference is between a shinobi and a true murderer? Sakura, confused, shook her head negatively. Shinobi kill because it's required of them and know why it must be done. Murderers kill because they enjoy it and don't need a reason beyond that. You didn't enjoy it, so you're not a murderer. But I just killed a man. This must be your first kill. It's always hard on us. My first kill haunted me for at least a week. But let's talk later. Can you look after my son while I go check for more threats? Sakura nodded. Thanks. If you need to talk about this, contact me when this is over. I'll be glad to help you get through this. For now, you don't have time to be hesitant. He then left. With some hesitation, Sakura pulled her kunai out of the fallen ninja's neck and went to Kiba's room. So that guy was Kiba's father? He's not what I expected at all. She opened the door and saw Kiba putting his shoes on. Kiba, someone's attacking the village. If you can fight, come with me to the stadium. I'm on it. He said as he stood up and Akamaru jumped on his head. Both genin then ran back towards the fight. I sure hope I can do this. Both thought. A few Konoha jounin landed behind Kurenai, Kabuto, and Anko, but those three had finished their genjutsu, so they were able to turn around and face their opposition. Standing before them were Tsum, Ibiki, and Asuma, looking ready for a fight. Kabuto smirked. A little small for a fight to be here, wouldn't you say? He then jumped away. Anko and Kurenai were about to follow, but shuriken from Ibiki stopped them momentarily. You two aren't going anywhere. Tsum-san, go track the runaway. The Inuzuka matriarch and her partner Kuramaru went after Kabuto. Ibiki half expected to see some small amount of concern on the two women's faces now, but they showed none, just confident grins. As if they had planned for Kabuto to draw one of them away. Anko and Kurenai rushed forward to fight the two men. Anko took Ibiki as her target, and Kurenai took Asuma. The Oto and Suna genin teamed up and branched out, each sticking to their own teams to maximize effectiveness. Their senseis had already told them to act without supervision here and follow 5 orders, stop as many Konoha shinobi as possible, use lethal force only if necessary, don't drag civilians into it if possible, don't reveal anything about Oto, and retreat immediately upon command. Naruto, Fu, and Gaara were given one extra command: feel free to use the Bija chakra if needed. Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi stayed near the stadium, waiting to take part in something Orochimaru had planned for later. Naruto, I will have need of you in my ultimate plan to destroy the old man and completely demoralize this wretched village. Fight with your teammates at first, but keep yourself braced for when I call you. Do as I say and victory will be all but assured. The Snake Sannin had told the disguised Jinchuriki the day before he left for the Chunin exams. So now, Naruto fought beside two of his girls ready to take down the old man that had set up his life for misery and the village that went along like a dog on a leash. Hinata fought with him to get back at the family she had nothing but bad memories of and knew beyond all doubt what they would do if they succeeded in what they planned for her or, heaven forbid, if they found out she had a sister. Isaribi fought because she knew someone in Konoha named Danzu had made it possible for Amachi to kill her parents and turn her into a lab rat, and the man had many supporters who tried to shift all slander at him onto Orochimaru, who was now viewed as the symbol of treachery in Konoha thanks to propaganda. As far as Konoha was concerned, Orochimaru had turned traitor and had burned down everything he created to avoid any paper trail and destroy any evidence. But the noble Sarutobi had caught him in an attempt to escape, and the only reason he failed to stop the Snake Sannin was the two demon children Orochimaru watched over tried to kill the old man, forcing him to kill a young Naruto and Anko in the process and thus saving Konoha from the Kyuubi once and for all. Sarutobi told people that the two children were already dead, but most people thought he really meant as good as dead when he got there. Danzu had turned this into an opportunity for himself. The truth was that he had stolen funds from the R&D department by convincing Orochimaru that these funds would go to testing new ninja possibilities, but all they went to were funds for Root and the start of the Curse Seal. Orochimaru managed to stop Danzu from gaining anything from Amachi, but the Warhawk had plans of his own. He told everyone that Orochimaru had been the one behind the inhumane testing and the creation of a seal that would threaten a ninja's sense of loyalty and morality. Danzu took credit for finding it by providing a few forged documents between the two, edited to say that Orochimaru had stolen members of his disbanded Root and even their families to experiment on, while Danzu himself was told that they were simply being deprogrammed to reintegrate into normal shinobi again. Thanks to this lie and generated sympathy from it, Danzu had been made the new head of R&D and then later also Uchiha clan representative when that clan had been destroyed. Subsonic had informed the Sannin of this. Because of this, Danzu became as much a target in this invasion as Sarutobi had been. They had to settle for striking Sarutobi first because he would be the easier to get to. So their armies were instructed to go after Danzu and take down anyone in their way. In a manner of speaking, this invasion was being done for three reasons. 1. To remove Sarutobi from office since he had abused his power and attempted to do things he had no business in doing. 2. To eliminate Danzu before he rallied enough support to pose a serious threat to Oto. And 3. To humble the foolish population, both shinobi and civilian, for allowing their biases to cloud their judgment in certain regards or in some cases dominate it. At the moment that was unimportant. All the three genin could think about was surviving here and kicking some leaf ass. And as expected, the first group to come their direction in this chaos was composed of Hyuga. They just don't learn, do they? Hinata snidely commented to her friends. You're coming with us, traitor. One of the Hyuga demanded. Cooperate, and you may be able to see the light of day again. Hinata scoffed and got into her stance. How can I betray you when I was never a part of your clan in the first place? Your cover story may have worked on everyone else, but we see through it. A female Hyuga said. We checked the records for more than just the name you gave us. We found out that 10 years ago a Hinata Hyuga disappeared and was never seen again. If she was still alive, she'd be your age. We find you having her name and our eyes to be too much of a coincidence. Naruto defensively stepped in front of Hinata. Big deal. Whether you're right or not, it doesn't matter because you never raised her. You cannot make demands of her and never will. Then we're just going to have to kill her and you. No one gets away with thinking they can humiliate us. An older Hyuga with graying hair venomously decreed. I can. Naruto said, activating one of his bloodlines. Dosu, Zaku, and Kin ran across the rooftops in an effort to lead some pursuing Konoha Chunin away from the stadium. They weren't having much luck, but thankfully Zaku was capable of running and attacking behind himself at the same time to keep them at bay a bit. Dosu and Kin had to avoid attacking in order to focus more on their surroundings. We need to get them off our asses. Kin told her teammates. You think we don't know that? Dosu snapped at her. Do you have any suggestions or do you just want to be pissy Mr. Barfbag? Kin snapped back, making Dosu practically growl in anger. Guys, I can't do this forever. Zaku stated impatiently. The trio had to jump over a gap between two buildings. During the jump Kin twisted in the air and threw a few kunai at her pursuers. The throwing knives hit them all in their feet, exactly where she had been aiming for. This meant once they landed, they wouldn't be able to chase the Oto Genin quite as effectively anymore until they remove the kunais. Even most experienced shinobi couldn't maneuver that well with pierced feet. Most would say Kin was a genjutsu specialist, and to a point she was. But Kin's true specialty was in throwing weapons. She was practically the Oto equivalent of Tenten. Had she been serious in her fight against Shino in the preliminaries, he would have lost a lot of blood rather than get exposed to her genjutsu or gotten his Hitaiate torn. Kin twisted around again to land facing forward and keep running. Thank you Naruto-kun for helping me here. Flashback, a 10-year-old Kin was in one of Oto's training grounds practicing her taijutsu on some posts. She tried her hardest to ignore the pain she felt from each hit and continued punching the wooden beam. After an especially hard one, she had to stop and grasp her hand, crying out now that she could no longer suppress the pain. Hey! You okay? A boy's voice called out to her. Through teary eyes Kin looked to see a boy with blonde hair heading towards her. I'm fine. Beat it. I can do this. The boy noticed the way she held her right hand. Can I at least see your hand? Kin winced but held it forward for him to see. That doesn't look good. I think you cracked a bone or two. Come with me so it can be healed. Kin dropped her head and sighed as if defeated. Fine. It's not like I'm getting any better anyway. What makes you say that? Kin glared at the newcomer. Because I have nothing to help me. I'm not from a ninja family. My entire family is civilians and I wanted to be the first ninja in my family. But everyone says that my background means I can never become a good one since I have nothing from my family to help me out. No clan style, no Kekkei Genkai, no hidden secrets, I've got nothing and everyone says nothing is all I'll ever be. So? Kin blinked in surprise but still looked angry, albeit a little less now. So? What do you mean? It's obvious you don't believe them since you're out here practicing and trying to become stronger. So why do you care what they say? If you really believed all that nonsense, you wouldn't be training to be a ninja. You'd be at home with your parents learning what they do. Shut up. Kin bitterly said. I think you know those people are wrong. You're just saying what they're saying to make yourself feel better for not being as strong as you want to be. The boy added. Well, sorry for not being privileged like you clan boy. Kin spat. My name's Naruto and my family is dead. The blonde told her, making her drop her cynicism. My birth family at least. The family I do have is made up of people who care about me but none of them are blood related to me. I have nothing to learn from my parents either. I'm sorry for assuming things. I just thought those lines on your face were a clan trait. Don't sweat it. You're not the first to assume that, and you're probably not the only person I'll encounter who assumes they've got it worse than others. Naruto told her. Are you training to be a ninja too? Kin asked. Naruto nodded. How do you do it? I have people to teach me so I don't learn on my own. Ji-san says being self-taught can only take you so far. They can't teach me everything they know, but they can teach me taijutsu, chakra control, and weaponry. Weaponry? Kin asked. Naruto nodded. Yeah. That's something you might do well in. Even a civilian can throw a knife and hit the mark. Try that rather than trying to break your hands on logs. Oh, you should still see a doctor about that too. Kin looked at her hand momentarily, having forgotten the pain, then back at the blonde boy. Would you help me? Could I learn from you? Naruto smiled. Sure. I can't help every day but I will help when I can. What's your name? Kin. Kin Tsuchi. Nice to meet you, Kin-chan. End flashback. Ever since that day, you've been the source of my strength. Kin thought. You made me realize that even if I lack the advantages others have, it doesn't mean I have none at all. And now thanks to you, I've got better aim than a sniper. That's my advantage. Kin then looked behind herself to see the pursuing Chunin and looked at their feet. Coming to a stop, she performed two hand signs. Illusion art blind skin jutsu. Nobody saw anything different happen. Kin babe, what are you doing? We gotta get out of here. Zaku said after he turned around to get her. I'm done. She said before pulling out some shuriken and throwing them at the Konoha ninja. The pursuers, now free of the kunais in their feet, continued the chase. You're fast, but your aim sucks. That's what I want you to think. Kin thought with a smile as she threw a few sunbon at them during the run. Temari and Kankuro had been ordered by their sensei Baki to go cover Gaara while he helped eliminate the bulk of Konoha's gathering army. It had been decided beforehand that Gaara had the most responsibility out of the three Jinchuriki for one main reason. He was the only one among them that could use his bijuu's full potential. Neither Naruto or Fu could use their demons like Gaara could, and he had no problem with getting his hands dirty in a fight. Fu's ability was really better suited to fighting one person at a time, and given Naruto's time limits on his various Kekkei Genkai, he would always need someone to cover him in between uses. Gaara however had no such restrictions and thus was allowed to fight however he desired. It was fortunate Jiraiya had improved his seal and his sanity years ago, or everyone in the immediate area would be at risk for death then. Temari and Kankuro were needed to allow Gaara to have enough time to build up his sand attacks properly. They would defend him while he readied himself to create a faux Shikaku to demoralize and crush Konoha. Right now they were running into the forest surrounding Konoha, jumping through the branches to avoid interference as much as possible, but they were still being followed. Wind-style great breakthrough. Temari said as she swung her fan and generated a cluster of wind blades that flew forward. It didn't hit the Konoha forces, but it did damage the trees ahead of them, making it harder for them to follow them now. That was what she had wanted anyway. The more delayed the enemy were, the more time the Suna siblings had to ready themselves and get into more strategic positions. Kankuro was currently unable to contribute much in the effort. Using his puppet would require more focus on the fight than the run, so he would have to stop and face the group alone if he did fight. However, he was able to throw some tagged kunai in the trees as he ran through them to create additional obstacles too, but he was running out. Temari, I think I better stop here and fight directly. You go with Gaara to help him. The cloaked boy told his sister. What? No way, Kankuro. The three of us always fight together. I wasn't asking. Kankuro said before coming to a stop and turned around, unwrapping his puppet Karasu. As he did, Temari and Gaara showed up on both sides. Neither was I. Temari proclaimed. Haku, Fu, and Sasami were running through the streets. Their plan was simple and shared by several of their comrades. Divert Konoha's attention away from the stadium and cause damage within the city itself. Granted, this put themselves at risk, but they were at risk the minute they set foot in Konoha. The three kunoichi had managed to get away unnoticed and hid in an alley. "Okay, what do we do?" Sasami asked. "Fortunately we're not being chased right now. I think we've got time to plan out a trap or ambush," Fu suggested. "Got any ideas?" Haku asked. "Give me a minute on that. I have one, but I want to save that as a last resort, so I'm trying to think up another." The green-haired Jinchuriki answered. "Think fast. We won't be unnoticed for long," Sasami claimed. Sarutobi could barely believe what he saw. His three students stood before him looking at him like he was Hanzo back from the grave. Kushina glared at him as if he had been the one to kill Minato, and the Kazekage gave him a cold unforgiving look, as if he believed the Hokage deserved this. Surrounding them were four Jounin-clothed shinobi in a rectangular formation, creating some sort of box-like barrier around them that incinerated anyone who came in contact with it. "Why are you doing this?" Sarutobi asked, hoping to get some understanding here. "It's rather simple, Sarutobi. You don't deserve to be in charge anymore, and since time won't get rid of you, we will. We hope that with you no longer in charge, Konoha will become what Minato died to preserve." Orochimaru answered. "Save your breath, Otokage-sama. He'll never accept what you're saying," Kushina stated. "Otokage-sama? So Orochimaru is the true leader of the village? Is that what he's been doing all these years? And did Jiraiya know about it but refuse to inform me?" Sarutobi asked himself. "True, Kushina, but we might as well give him something to think about as he spends eternity in darkness," Orochimaru replied. "Jiraiya, Tsunade, did you know this would happen?" the old man asked, already aware of their answer but wanting to hear the depth of their involvement. "We know a lot more than that, sensei," Jiraiya said. "We know you lied to us about our godson. We know you told us what you did to keep us both away from him so our influence wouldn't conflict with what you had planned for him. We know you only allowed Orochimaru to watch over him because someone had to and you didn't want to make him suspicious by allowing a baby to go untreated. We also know you lied to us and the others in Konoha about IWA as an excuse to hide Minato's son from the public." Sarutobi looked a bit nervous. Kazekage stepped forward. "I also know you wanted my son to go crazy by hoping I'd drive him to the brink of insanity and he would destroy my village from the inside. As far as I'm concerned, the peace treaty between our villages is null and void." Tsunade cracked her knuckles. "Don't bother denying it, sensei. We've seen the documents and made copies of them all. We've also shared them with Suna and IWA. We know all your secrets, but what we don't know is why. Why? Why? You dare ask me why I do as I do? I'm your superior, you do not question my decisions, you follow them. I taught you that back when you three were bickering genins." Orochimaru frowned. "So you show no remorse for what you've done, only anger at being caught and forced to explain yourself. Don't act like you're any better than me. If you were, you wouldn't be doing this invasion just to punish me. You wouldn't drag all of Konoha into it," Sarutobi replied. Jiraiya smirked. "Who said you were the only one we had dirt on? The leaf has gotten diseased under your leadership and it's time to trim the tree, and you're not the only branch we're going to clip off. You're just the first douchebag to go," Kushina said, her once violet eyes now red with slits thanks to her chakra capable of slightly mimicking that of the Kyuubi. "How are you even still alive, Kushina?" Sarutobi asked loudly. "You were supposed to be dead 13 years ago." "Supposed to be?" Kushina repeated, arching an eyebrow as she did. "My living is an inconvenience to you?" "Oh, course it is, Kushina," Orochimaru told her. "Had you been able to care for Naruto, he wouldn't have been able to get away with doing anything to your son. People would have been more likely to believe he was a normal boy rather than a demon in human form, and you would have been able to tell everyone who his father is. Sensei wouldn't have a chance at breaking Naruto's spirit and molding him as he saw fit. The one good thing about his reaction is that it shows he's not the one who held her in wave. That had to be someone else. Jiraiya thought. Are we going to just stand here talking about why we're here, or are we going to do what we came here to do? Kazekage asked, sounding more than a bit impatient. You're right, Kazekage-sama, no more wasting time. Tsunade said. Kakashi had been fighting ever since he heard the command from Sarutobi, and so far had beaten 12 enemy nin, not focusing too much on where they came from. I may not have Obito's Sharingan anymore, but I'm not powerless. I did learn a few skills before I got it after all. That's 11 for me, Kakashi. Looks like I'm winning. Guy said in his usual upbeat way. Kakashi threw a kunai at an approaching Oto nin. That makes 13 for me. Guy balled his fist and cried a waterfall. Curse you and your coolness, Kakashi. Not now, Guy, get to business. Sakura and Kiba ran up to their sensei. Kakashi-sensei, what should we do? Gather your friends and anyone who can't fight and head somewhere safe. What? You want us to turn tail and run? Kiba asked, ready to refuse such an order. Yes, I do. We're not fighting a group of academy students or even genin here, we're fighting an army. An army that has been preparing for this. You two are in no shape to get involved here. If one of your comrades were in danger or being reckless, that would be one thing, but that's not happening, so I'm ordering you to get out of the war zone. Sakura, you don't have the skills needed to fight in a war yet, and Kiba, you've just been through a serious fight with one of their genin. How strong do you think their jounin are? Sakura looked ashamed, as if she was supposed to be strong enough to fight but aware she couldn't. Kiba looked irritated, like he was being told not to do his favorite thing. Before they could say anything further, Kakashi had to turn away and fight a Suna nin. Go! Now! The two genin departed and ran out of the stadium. Where are the others? Kiba asked. I don't know. Use your nose. That will help us. Sakura said, sounding worried for her friends and home. I'll go look for Sasuke-kun. Kiba almost snarled. We're under attack and he's still the only thing you can think about? Sakura shook her head. He's the only one I have a good idea on where he might be. I don't know about the others, so we need your nose to find them. We won't need it to find our teammate and see if he can help us. Kiba wanted to argue, but he was noticing that as they were running, Sakura was going towards Sasuke's residence, and by conversing with him she was making him follow her. Fine, but only because he's a teammate. If he's not there, I'm not wasting more time focusing on just him. Thanks, Kiba. The Inuzuka managed to hide his confused look. I was actually expecting her to put up more of a fight than that. So why didn't she? Striking shadow snakes. Enko called out, sending 6 snakes at the head of Konoha's TNI department. Ibiki held up his arms and took the hit, allowing the snakes to bite his arms. There's only one reason why he'd do that. He must have developed some immunity to snake venom in his career. But that's not going to be enough to beat me. At the same time, only a few dozen meters away, Kurenai was fighting the son of the third Hokage. She had tried trapping him in her binding tree genjutsu, but he swung his trench knives around and cleaved her kunai in half. He must be putting wind chakra into his weapons to make them sharper. I can't fight him close range, not that I need to. Hoping to buy themselves some brief time to think, the two kunoichi backed away from their male opponents and stood side by side. Can you target them both while I try something? Enko asked. Sure, but watch out for the smoker there. His weapons are sharper than normal. Kurenai responded. And the Scarface there seems to be used to experiencing pain. Enko added before Ibiki and Asuma came closer and drew them back into the fight. Whatever it is you're planning, we're not going to give you the chance to finish. Asuma told them. You don't scare us. Enko stated. Asuma smirked. You should be. I was one of the 12 guardians of the Fire Daimyo, and he's in charge of the group that specializes in making enemies break and give in. He pointed to Ibiki, who had drawn out some senbon at this point. Whoop-de-doo. Enko sarcastically replied. You still don't scare me. Not only that, we've just learned a few things about them. Kurenai thought. The bearded one must be a powerhouse, but he probably works best with someone covering him too, and the trench coat guy's job has probably made him instinctively hold back on killing us in hopes of capturing us for later. If we get rid of him without getting caught in one of his traps, then the other guy may pull back or call for backup. We can use that time to go help the others. Ibiki threw his senbon at Enko with a lot of force. The purple-haired kunoichi surprised him by taking the hit. The needle stuck through her jacket, but she acted like she felt nothing. Ibiki grew cautious. She may be capable of ignoring pain if it's too weak. I should try a heavier hit than striking pressure points. He pulled out a few kunai and threw them as well. Enko swirled but looked unafraid. Ibiki noticed one of them hit her mesh shirt and deflected off. Mesh shirts were a simple form of defense, but even they weren't that good. They hindered or weakened damage, they didn't prevent it entirely. Asuma kept swinging his trench knives at Kurenai, who was backing away and dodging each hit and holding some kunai in an effort to hit him first. His knives never touched her, but when they got close her outfit got a few rips. So he's using his chakra to extend their reach as well as sharpen them? That proves his area of expertise is in close range. Fighting him up close is bound to get me bruised and bloody. I need to slow him down. Enko made 4 hand signs, then put her palms on the stadium roof. Summoning jutsu, from the puff of smoke emerged 2 snakes. Kogayaku, I'm going to need your help here. Sango, go find Otuto. He can't be far. Will do. Both snakes said before the purple one wrapped around Enko's shoulders and the orange one slithered away to find Naruto. A snake won't help you here. I'm immune to most venoms. Ibiki said. I could tell. Enko said back. But I never said Kogayaku here was venomous. The purple snake launched off her summoner's torso and grew in size to match that of an anaconda. She's a constrictor. Kurenai meanwhile ducked low when Asuma did a sideswipe strike with his knives, low enough to temporarily be in his blind spot and punch him in his personal area. Asuma briefly winced and stepped back, but overall didn't look too affected by the hit. Kurenai noticed her hand felt like there had been more separating her hand and his body than just cloth. He was wearing a cup. Guess he's fought with kunoichi before a lot in the past. Asuma then threw one of his knives, and it hit Kurenai in the neck. She made several pained sounds of surprise, and tried to pull it out. While she did, he came up and thrust his other knife into her rib cage, destroying her organs. Nothing personal, but I'm certain you would have done the same to me. How right you are. Kurenai said clearly, surprising him. Before Asuma knew it, he felt the stone underneath him get softer and practically turn to mud, then pull him down like quicksand. Kurenai then faded from view and he saw her arms reach out from behind him and told his previously thrown knife at his neck. But how? Illusion art, false death vision. Kurenai told him. In that brief time she couldn't be seen, she cast a genjutsu and applied it to Asuma in her below-the-belt punch, which was her true intention. This tricked the bearded smoker into thinking he got lucky and landed a lethal blow on the red-eyed kunoichi, but she grabbed his discarded weapon and moved behind him, applying another genjutsu to rid him of using his legs. You Otonin sure are tougher than we gave you credit for. Asuma commented. Thanks, but you should never underestimate your enemy. This invasion is only just beginning. What did you do to piss this many people off, Sarutobi? Enma said once the Hokage summoned him. I don't know, but I'm going to need your help, old friend, to fend them off. Sarutobi answered. The monkey warrior grimaced but did not argue. Very well, Sarutobi, but this may be more than we can handle. We're not as young as we used to be. Maybe, but we're not dead yet. Emphasis on the yet part. Kushina stated. Before the invasion, it was decided that Orochimaru, Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kushina, and the Kazekage would be the ones facing down the Hokage while their armies looked for Danzu and kept Konoha's forces from interfering. The problem here was that having 3 Sannin, a former Jinchuriki with Jounin rank, and a Kage facing Sarutobi was basically overkill, and they didn't want to kill him too quickly. Each one of them deserved to get a hit in here. Problem was, who first? Fortunately they had that figured out before they came here. Jiraiya and Tsunade stepped forward, or to be more precise they charged at their old instructor. Tsunade had her fist cocked and Jiraiya was performing a set of hand signs. Acting on pure instinct, Sarutobi and Enma dodged to their left, the side Tsunade was on, and Sarutobi pivoted to swing around behind her. Enma transformed into his staff form and Sarutobi grabbed hold of it to hit Tsunade's head from behind. The impact affected her balance and momentum, but it didn't knock her out. Fire-style toad flare bomb. Jiraiya called out before sending a wave of fire at his sensei. Without the toads to provide help here, it was considerably weaker, but it should still burn its target. Using his staff and his armor, which fortunately was fireproof, Sarutobi was unscathed. You're out of luck, my wayward students. I taught you everything you know. You have no surprises for me. All 3 Sannin laughed. What do you think we've been doing since the last time you saw us? Performing the same old moves over and over again? Orochimaru asked before pulling out his sword Kusanagi. We have new techniques, secret weapons, and we're much younger than you, Sarutobi-sensei. Plus we outnumber you. Sarutobi frowned and jumped onto a compartment nearby that elevated him higher than those around him. Maybe, but there's a reason I'm Hokage. You don't know all my moves either. Well, let's see who's got the best tricks up their sleeves then, shall we? Kushina venomously asked, reaching for something hidden behind her. Kurenai was holding one of Asuma's dropped weapons to his neck from behind, when he suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a log. She backed away and looked for any signs of explosive tags attached to it. Fortunately there were none, but she couldn't see Asuma anywhere on the rooftop. He's either planning an ambush or going for backup, maybe both. I better go help Anko-chan while I have a free moment. Anko's summoned snake Kogayaku had managed to constrict herself around Ibiki, and looked ready to bite him. The scarred man could see small drops of clear liquid on the large purple snake's fangs. Wait, I thought you said this snake was a constrictor. Anko deviously chuckled. I did. But that means it can't be venomous. Ibiki added. Anko shook her head. Wrong. I told you I never said Kogayaku was venomous. What you didn't realize is I also never said she wasn't. A venomous constrictor? Impossible. Ibiki said, starting to feel a bit afraid. Summons are a little loose with the rules of biology. Anko stated. Kurenai stood beside her friend. Anything I can do? Anko shrugged. Not sure, probably won't have to. Kogayaku, I think we've scared Konoha's big bad mindfucker enough. Give him a taste of what you've got. With pleasure. The snake said, arching her head back. She lunged forward to bite the scarred man's right collarbone area. However, there was a puff of smoke and Kogayaku ended up sinking her fangs into Kurenai. Anko dropped her jaw while the genjutsu expert screamed in pain. Out of the control of her eye she saw a black trenchcoat and blocked a kunai attack. You bastard. You substituted yourself with my friend. Like you wouldn't have done the same had the situation been reversed. Ibiki countered, continuing his assault. Anko mostly blocked but did throw a few hits back. You're just mad you didn't think of it first. Kogayaku withdrew her fangs and stopped constricting around the now victimized Kunoichi. My deepest apologies, Yuhi-san. That was not for you. I don't blame you, Kogayaku. Kurenai said, trying to withstand the pain and cover up her wounds. The bite left 2 nasty-looking holes on her collarbone area. Enko looked at her injured friend, trying not to be distracted from her fight with Ibiki. The scarred man was getting a few good swings at her, and it was only thanks to her special mesh she was unscathed so far. Both she and Naruto wore mesh lining that used the shed skin of Kogayaku and Sango. Naruto even had some sewn into his orange jumpsuit, meaning he wore it for defense rather than stealth. As their names implied, Kogayaku and Sango had hard armor like scales, something a simple kunai could not damage. Reaching into her pocket, Enko threw something towards Kurenai. Kurenai, catch! The red-eyed Honin caught it and saw she now held a capped syringe. I always carry antivenom for my snakes in case they bite someone innocent. Use it now. Thanks, Enko-chan. She quietly said before uncapping the syringe and injecting herself with the antivenom. Right away she felt a strange tingle in her wound and looked at it as best she could given its location. This must have some healing properties to remove the wounds too. Must have been created by Tsunade-sama. Are you better? Kogayaku asked. I'm getting there. Go help her out. The snake nodded. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you'd survive first. I'd hate to kill one of Enko's friends by mistake. She then slithered away. Ibiki saw the approaching serpent and threw one of his kunai at it. Thanks to her crystal-hard scales, the weapon bounced harmlessly off her. Luckily for him, this time the snake seemed apprehensive about striking him in case he substituted with someone else again. Enko however didn't seem as restricted and kept trying to cut him open. A kunai was thrown from the sidelines and only her quick reflexes saved Enko from being hit. Kogayaku wasn't as lucky and got grazed, but the spot that was hit was torn and bled. Enko checked her favorite summons. Kogayaku, you're bleeding. How is that possible? Asuma showed up next to Ibiki holding a sword with wind chakra in it and with a dozen members of the TNI department backing him up. You've got no chance to win or escape now, he declared. Enko glared then smirked. We're not done yet. She then summoned a gigantic 3-headed snake. Go crazy, have some fun. She told it, and the Hydra happily obliged. Enko, I don't feel so good. Kurenai said, her vision getting blurry while she got sweaty. Then she collapsed on her left side. Kurenai, Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi were holding their own against the swarming Hyuga, struggling to fight multiple opponents. Some of them did attack Hinata right away, but it looked like most of them were trying to get Naruto and Isaribi out of the way first. Isaribi probably surprised them the most by showing she could fight outside of water. From what they saw in the finals and heard in the preliminaries from Niji, they have expected her to practically be a fish out of water right then. What they didn't realize was that Asayataki was designed to work in and out of water, just better in water. Tactic 7 Squid Bite. Isaribi said as she threw a net of mono-wire at some of the advancing Hyuga. Most escaped but 2 did not and got ensnared in it quickly, thinking they could easily break out of it. The net quickly wrapped around them both, binding them back to back and throwing them off balance and onto the ground. Like this their hands weren't in a good enough place to cut through the wire easily, but they could cut a few strands. Isaribi knew this and moved forward to hit them both with her kunai, driving them in rather than just cutting them up. Had they been underwater she also would have been able to trap them there until they drowned. 5 trigrams Protective Blade Dance. Hinata said as she formed 2 long blade of chakra on her hands and swung her arms around quickly to keep all attackers away from her and keep her outside the range of their jukin. And, it's basically the Protective 8 trigrams technique just renamed, and since the Hyuga rarely kept weapons on themselves, they had little chance of getting close to her. Those that did have weapons tried using them, but they were repelled by her fast flexible arms. At the same time, Naruto was irritating them to new levels. He was currently using his ghost body Kekkai Genkai to make all their attacks useless as well as be difficult to see to their eyes. Nothing could unsettle a Hyuga more than having something mess up their vision like his ghost body does. Ghost art, phantom claws of decay. He said before creating a set of chakra arms that passed through all the Hyuga around him, removing their ability to produce chakra and thus use any of their fighting methods. After a while it looked like the Hyuga were stepping back to avoid further injuries. Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi got closer, holding their ground and looking ready for more. Hinata had dropped her protective blade dance, but was ready to bring it back in a heartbeat. Out of the gathered Hyuga, 2 stepped forward. Hinata recognized one of them as Neji, but the older one she didn't recognize right away but felt she should have. Enough of this senseless fighting, all of you. He said, as much to the Oto Genin as his own clan. He then looked directly at Hinata. Are you Hinata Hibiki? It's about time one of you calls me by my real name. She replied. By chance, is your mother named Hitomi? Hinata glared. That's none of your business. I only ask because if it's true, then you're my niece. He told her. You may not remember me, but I'm Hisashi, your father Hayashi's brother. Oh yeah, this was the guy who was with the Hokage when they asked for our cover story. Hinata thought. So? What does that matter to me? Hisashi sighed, sounding a bit sad. Before anything else happens, I just feel you should know, your father is no longer with us. Hinata showed no reaction. He's dead? Hisashi nodded. He killed himself, unable to cope with the loss of his wife and 2 daughters. Had he known you were still alive, he might have found the will to live on. Oka-san's not going to like hearing that. She's never said a word about that to me or Hanabi, so I doubt she already knows this. Hinata thought. And you're telling me this, why? Hisashi looked confused, as did several other Hyuga. I just thought you should at least know about your father so you can properly mourn him. Hinata scoffed. I don't even remember my father's face. I'm not wasting a tear on mourning him. Neji glared. You heartless bitch. He couldn't imagine why anyone would not mourn the passing of a parent, given how close he once was to losing his own. Like I care what a clan of child beaters has to say. Hinata replied, surprising the surrounding Hyuga. Why do you think I never came back to this place? I refuse to live with a so-called family that beats up and enslaves its own for an ego trip disguised as training or a safety measure, or in a village that lets them hide behind clan privileges to do as they please. I'll die before I go back to you. Wish granted. One of the Hyuga said, ready to aim for her heart right then while she was unfocused. I don't know about you guys, but I can't keep running forever. Dosu told his teammates. We won't have to. These guys should be slowing down soon enough. Kin replied. Then why aren't they? Zaku asked, irritably. Kin frowned. I said soon enough, not right away. Give it some time. The more they run, the sooner it will happen. The 3 genin noticed out of the corner of their eyes someone new approaching them quickly. Kin turned and got ready to throw a few shuriken before she saw who it was. Kabuto-sensei? What are you doing here? Same thing you are, running from a chaser. The spectacled jounin answered, pointing his thumb behind him to indicate Tsum and Kuramaru. Can you help us out here, sensei? My legs are getting tired. Zaku pleaded. Certainly, but that means more stamina training back home. Kabuto said in a joking manner, making Zaku groan. The 4 Oto Nin came to a stop on a building close to Konoha's southeast wall. The pursuing Konoha Nin came to a stop too, creating a standoff between the 2 groups. Wise move to admit defeat. One of the Konoha nin stated. Some looked over at the others. Kami-sama, you're all bleeding so heavily. What are you talking about? Another Konoha shinobi asked before feeling around his body. I'm not bleed. He stopped when he felt several kunai sticking out of him and some warm liquid around the apparent wounds too. The others checked too and saw they all had no less than 6 weapons lodged in their flesh and losing a lot of blood from them. How could this have happened? Kin smirked. That was me and my blind skin genjutsu. It took away your ability to recognize you were being hurt and made you unable to feel any pain. As far as you were concerned, I kept missing because you couldn't feel my weapons hit their mark. But I hit you every time, you just didn't feel it. And now that you've noticed, all that pain you've been blinded to, combined with the blood loss you've endured thanks to all that running around, should hit you right about now. As if on cue, the wounded ninja suddenly felt the effects of Kin's genjutsu wear off, and the accumulated sensations of pain and lightheadedness kicked in all in one instant. Being experienced shinboi, they didn't scream or make a fuss, but they did wince and lose the ability to stand up and move around much anymore. Unless they were taken to a medic, they'd all die of copious blood loss within 30 minutes tops. Some growled at the Oto nin. Seeing comrades near death was always a good way to get an Inuzuka mad, even if they didn't know the comrades that well. Being a fighter rather than a healer, some chose to attack the Oto nin rather than get the fallen shinobi to safety. The 3 genin got out of the way but Kabuto remained in her line of attack. At the last second he swerved to avoid being hit and then touched her arm with his chakra scalpel. Some winced in surprise as she felt a few tendons being severed inside her arm. Kuramaru was able to bite down on Kabuto's left calf while he was occupied. Dosu ran up to the large dog. Melody Gauntlet ultra-high-pitched screech. His weapon now emitted a sound that was so high-pitched only dogs could hear it, and it was at point-blank range. Kuramaru howled in agony, feeling like his ears were about to explode. All he could do right then was run away, even if it meant ditching Tsum. He hated doing that, but his ears currently didn't care about loyalty. So the black wolf-like canine darted away as fast as he could. Tsum saw all this and could not fault her partner for doing that. She backed away from Kabuto, rubbing her right upper arm where he struck her. She felt no external wound, but she was certain the ligament was cut. I sure hope there's no internal bleeding, or I'm screwed. I better try one move to see if I can take them down then get to an available medic right away to check the damage. Decapitating airwaves. Zaku shouted as he attacked the Inuzuka matriarch. Piercing Fang. Tsum replied before spinning around like a cyclone missile. Thankfully Zaku was worn out from repeated attacks earlier so she was able to brush off his attack like this and continue her own. Zaku was surprised to see his attack do nothing and unfortunately he couldn't react in time and got hit by Tsum's attack head-on. He screamed in pain as the cyclone attack tore into him. The only thing keeping him from dying right away was the fact his attack had slowed her down a little. Tsum then went past Zaku and disappeared out of sight. Zaku collapsed on his back in agony. His team members came up to see how he was doing. Kabuto looked him over immediately. Intensive trauma on his internal abdominal region, tearing of the skin, multiple fractures, and I think internal bleeding. We can't move you so I am going to have to treat you here. Kin, Dosu, stand guard. Yes sensei. The two said before taking defensive positions around their wounded teammate. Outside the purple barrier atop one of the roofs, a few Umbu tried to get through and help the Hokage. They found they could not and would only incinerate upon contact with the barrier. Apparently attacking the 4 Oto nin creating the barrier didn't work as the barrier extended to cover them too. Inside the barrier, Sarutobi found himself having a hard but not one-sided fight. Tsunade and Jiraiya kept attacking him, although he noted Jiraiya appeared to be pulling his punches a little. Kushina got involved, and to his horror, she had a dark sword in hand. Meanwhile, Orochimaru and the Kazekage stood back and watched. They're not watching, they're getting ready for something. I can see Kazekage's gold dust swirling around, but I can't see what he's doing with it. Tsunade and Kushina are the only ones actually trying to kill me, but I think Jiraiya is trying to keep me from interfering in whatever the others are doing. Sarutobi analyzed. Kushina's sword came much too close for his liking, and it was only thanks to Enma's staff form he wasn't cut by her. Is that the sword I think it is? He asked. You'd think I'd try to kill you with just any sword? Kushina angrily asked back. Sarutobi backed away, grabbed a few of the broken tiles on the roof, and threw them like shuriken. Heck knew it was a weak attack, but hopefully he would hit a vulnerable spot. Tsunade hit them all away with her fists and Kushina used her sword to cut them in half. From behind Jiraiya threw two kunai aimed at the back of Sarutobi's knees. Sarutobi shifted his legs and received only small cuts. I can't hold out much longer fighting multiple skilled vengeful opponents. I better bring out one of my trump cards. The old man told himself. Enma, we're going to have to use one of the big ones. Enma turned back into his normal form and kicked Jiraiya to keep some distance from him. You certain about that, Hiruzen? We're not going to last much longer without it. The Sandaime replied, already starting the hand signs and then placing his palms on the roof. Earth-style army of mountain apes. From the roof emerged a dozen stone statues that looked like small gorillas. Small meaning they weren't life-sized, only half-sized. Right away the constructs tried to swarm everyone around them except Sarutobi and Enma. Damn, my sword's useless against these things. Kushina said as she avoided one of the apes and sheathed her signature weapon. One almost got her from behind, but Tsunade covered her by hitting it hard enough to make it shatter. Thanks Tsunade-sama. No sweat Kushina-chan, although I get the feeling. The slug Sannin paused to take out another one. That I'm going to be the one to handle this part the most. No you won't. Kushina said, thrusting her right arm out and using her chakra chain to wrap around 3 gorilla statues before pulling it and cleaving them. This doesn't make sense. Jiraiya though, also breaking a few ape golems with weaker but well-placed kicks. Sensei must know we can destroy these things. What's his angle? Gold coffin. Kazekage said, using some of his gold dust like how his son uses his sand. With it he trapped one stone gorilla. Gold burial. The trap tightened until the sound of shattering rock could be heard. Orochimaru jumped over one attacking statue and turned in mid-air behind it. Lightning-style storm viper jutsu. A lightning bolt in the shape of a snake shot out from his hands and struck the automaton he had aimed at, then bounced off it to strike one more target. Both hits destroyed the top half of the stone apes. Tsunade got the last one. Give it up sensei, you're outnumbered and too old to fight us all. Maybe, but I'm not alone either. He told her. Before I do more, I must ask, why are you against me? I can sum it up in one word. Orochimaru stated. Naruto. Naruto? Sarutobi asked, remembering the blonde from the last time he saw him, 10 years ago. Indeed sensei. The snake Sannin responded. You lied to me, you lied to my teammates, you lied to Konoha, you lied to Kazekage-sama, you've lied to us all and we're very angry about it. Tell us why, and we may go easy on you. Sarutobi frowned. So that's what this is all about? You don't like the decisions I made to ensure peace for this village, so you're going to bring war to it? Peace? Who are you to speak of peace? Kushina bitterly asked. I did what I could, even if it meant getting dirty. But enough of this. Earth-style Kong conglomerate jutsu. The old man said, sounding angry and wanting this to be finished. When he finished, all the broken pieces used to make his ape army rose into the air and gathered in one point. When they got there they were rearranged and reshaped, and soon created an earthen gorilla about half the size of Gamabunta. Sarutobi jumped to get on top it, and Enma followed. Like it? I used this a few times back in the war. The first jutsu gets a few hits in while it lasts, but when the stone apes are destroyed, this one can be created from the rubble with only a fraction of the chakra needed if I did it without the first. A layered jutsu strategy, good one sensei. Orochimaru told him. Damn, with that thing here there's no room for our summons. At least we don't need them. Tsunade thought. Orochimaru, is it time? Jiraiya asked. Oh yes, it's time. Kazekage-sama, if you will. The Suna leader controlled his gold dust, revealing that all this time he had been carving a hole in the rooftop for them to reach down into. But instead of having a person go into it, his gold dust did and pulled up something, an old man around Sarutobi's age in a chair. Thank you for your sacrifice, Satoru-san. Kazekage told the old man. It's the least I can do. This way I'll die with value. The man in the chair said. Jiraiya, go get Naruto now. Orochimaru told his teammate. What the heck are they planning? Sarutobi asked himself. Temari had her fan fully opened, Kankuro had his karasu armed and dangerous, and Gaara had his sand ready and thirsty for blood. In front of them stood a cluster of Konoha jounin, numbering close to 22 by Temari's count. Wind-style great breakthrough. Temari shouted, swinging her fan. When ambushed like this she often was the first to attack. It was part of a favored strategy the Suna siblings had. The wind attack sent several of the jounin out of the trees, but most of them used their chakra to reinforce their hold on the branches. When the attack ended, the remaining jounin threw a few tagged kunai at the trio. Gaara's sand reacted to shield all three of them from the blasts. Kankuro looked down to see those that fell out of the tree seconds ago landed safely and were coming up the tree they were standing in. Acting swiftly, he sent Karasu down to shoot poison-tipped Senbon at them to slow them down if not stop them. Gaara's sand formed a Shikaku claw and tried to swat away most of the Konoha nin. 2 felt the blow but 10 escaped. Fire-style fireball jutsu, 5 of them said simultaneously, trying to turn Gaara's sand to glass. He retracted his sand before they could and jumped to the tree behind him to avoid the more direct flames. Temari and Kankuro had to move too once they saw their tree was on fire. Temari went down to the ground to take care of the ninja there, and Kankuro went higher up for cover while Karasu fought below him. Temari's wind kept most approachers from getting too close as well and altered the landscape little by little, making them have to take new positions each time. Karasu kept surprising the Konoha nin with the revelation of extra arms and hidden blades, all equipped with poison that had already affected 3 of the jounin. And Gaara's sand killed everyone it touched, turning them into a bloodly pulp. Something's not right. This is too easy. Gaara thought as he claimed his 4th victim. It's like they're trying to survive but not win here. His eyes widened. Kankuro, Temari, let's get out of here. The 2 did not freeze, but they were concerned. Gaara never insisted they desert a fight. What's wrong? Kankuro asked before moving his position. They've got to be trying to delay us. They're keeping us busy as they plan for something. The redhead boy explained, having to kill another man. Smart boy. A man's voice called out. Temari tried to jump once she heard that, but her body froze. She struggled to look down, and saw a shadow was attached to her own. What the fuck? Looking to where the shadow came from, she saw Shikaku Nara. Shadow possession jutsu success. Inoichi Yamanaka appeared next to a Konoha nin clutching his bleeding side. Thank you for your assistance. We'll take it from here. Chuza Akimichi became his giant size and grabbed a hold of Karasu. Kankuro panicked and tried to get his puppet to cut the man's large hands, but it didn't work. His skin was too hard. And to make matters worse, Chuza's other hand came very close to crushing him too. Kankuro got away and landed by his sister's side. Gaara showed up beside them too. You will not hurt those precious to me. And you will not succeed in destroying our home. Shikaku said, extending his shadow to ensnare the other two. Kankuro got away, but Gaara made no effort to move. Mind possession jutsu. Inoichi said, aiming his attack at Gaara. Any time now Fuchan would be good. Sasami said as some Umbu found their hiding spot and jumped to land in front of them, trying to hold them in place. There were 3, wearing masks like a cat, pig, and crow. Sasami pulled out a wakizashi and Haku pulled out some kunais. Fu opened her eyes and stared fearlessly at the approaching Umbu. I wouldn't attack us if I were you. Oh yeah? And why not? The cat-masked one challenged. Using Shichibi's chakra, Fu ripped a brick out of the building behind her. She showed it to the Umbu, where a paper bomb with a wire attached to it was clear to see. Because there's a trap in the area. Attack us, and I trigger this bomb and all other bombs attached to it. It's a good thing we were informed on where a few of those were by Hinata-san in case we needed to use any. Haku thought. The crow Umbu in particular stiffened. How do you know about the layout? You must be a Hyuga to know about the huge paper bomb network that runs through Konoha. Fu replied, confusing all the other Umbu. Oh, you guys didn't know. Someone rigged this entire village to explode if so much as a kunai hit the wrong spot. A spot like this one. The Hokage knows about it, but hasn't done a damn thing about it except have the Hyuga ensure it's untouched. The Umbu look at the crow-masked one. It's just a contingency plan. That's all. Some carpenter set up long ago but we stopped him from setting it off. Hokage-sama felt it best to keep it in place in the event Konoha was likely to be taken over. That way we could destroy the enemy with us. I guess you never planned for what to do if the enemy beat you to it. Fu commented, then held a kunai close to the bomb. All I have to do is strike this and your village goes bye-bye. You're bluffing. The pig Umbu said. Fu snickered. If I am, then why is your friend there so nervous? He's aware of the situation, you tell me if I'm bluffing. Fuchan, you better know what you're doing. I'd rather not die here. Haku and Sasami thought. The cat Umbu moved quickly, pulling out her sword and severing the wire attached to the bomb. There, now your threat is useless. But we're not. Haku said, throwing her kunai. The cat Umbu deflected them and came up closer. Haku couldn't form any jutsu or reach for her weapon, so the Umbu managed to grab her, pin her to the wall, and hold her sword against the back of Haku's neck. She's fast. Almost as fast as me. Haku-chan. Sasami yelled, starting a set of hand signs. Before she could start the second one, the Hyuga Umbu member came up to her and assaulted her with the 64 palms maneuver. Sasami fell to her knees and to add insult to injury he stomped his foot on her back to pin her behind him. The pig-masked Umbu pulled out a few chakra restraining seals and threw them at Fu, but they burned up before hitting her. What the hell? Fu glared at him, her eyes yellow and her body covered in red chakra. Sasuke poured himself a glass of tomato juice, trying to ignore the commotion going on outside his apartment. Must be some sort of celebration for everyone who's advancing. Damn it, that should be me. He said out loud, for no particular reason. And why should it be? A new voice said from behind him. Defensive, and even a bit spooked, Sasuke spun around to see the intruder. He momentarily cursed the fact that he didn't have any gear on him at that moment. Seated on the open windowsill was Subsonic, looking rather casual, but still wearing their ninja gear, mask, and hood to hide any and all identifying characteristics. Even the voice was muffled to be hard to distinguish. What are you doing here in my house? Sasuke angrily asked. I just came to see what you were going to do about your village being attacked. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Konoha's under attack? Indeed, and by my superiors. What are you going to do about? Subsonic replied, sounding like they were both challenging him and asking him out of curiosity. Sasuke shrugged. Why should I do anything? Konoha used me, so why should I volunteer to risk my life for them? Subsonic frowned. Because once you became a ninja you swore to aid Konoha in good times and bad and do whatever it took to uphold the will of fire and your home. So? Sasuke asked. I owe them nothing. It's not a matter of owing. It's a matter of loyalty to your home and what it stands for. People outside are dying and you can look me in the eyes and tell me you don't care even a little? Subsonic asked. If it were my clan out there, Sasuke started, but was cut off by a kunai almost hitting his toes before he even knew it had been thrown. Enough with your Uchihas are the only ones who matter complex. I'm sick to death of hearing it. Subsonic told him, irritation flooding their voice. Sasuke glared. You break into my home, try to order me around, and now you insult my clan? What the hell gives you the right to look down on me? I do it for the same reason you do it to everyone else. Subsonic answered. Wait, that's not entirely true. I do it because I don't respect you. You do it because you don't respect others too, but you also think you're superior to all other carbon-based lifeforms simply because you were born with a fancy name. Maybe you've never realized this, Sasuke, but Uchiha does not translate as kami. Get out. Sasuke said, in no mood to hear more disrespect. Subsonic stood up and looked defiant. Make me, big tough elite guy. Sasuke glared and stood his ground, but did nothing. I don't have any weapons and using fire jutsu would just damage my home. All I have is taijutsu, but it strangely doesn't look like this person actually came here for a fight. What do you want with me? He asked. To be honest, I wanted to see what you'd do knowing Konoha and the people who know are in danger. I can't say I'm surprised to see you be so apathetic to this, but I can say I'm disappointed. Subsonic told him. Sasuke scoffed. Don't talk about me like you know me. Oh, but I do, Sasuke Uchiha. I've been watching many people in Konoha for years, waiting for this day. You're one of the many I took an interest in. I know you have a clinical superiority complex with a narcissistic desire for it to be reinforced by those around you. I know you were considered popular and talented by your classmates, but they were misguided, mistakenly believing that your brother was unable to kill you rather than he spared you. I know you're the type of person who wants something to fight against rather than something to fight for. And I know that deep down, your strongest desire is not to kill Itachi to avenge your clan. Sasuke looked shocked and deeply offended at that last one. How dare you? I am an avenger. My entire life has been devoted to avenging my clan and killing Itachi. Subsonic shook their head. No, it's not, and I can prove it. Sasuke frowned. Oh yeah? How? Tell me, Sasuke, whenever you picture yourself killing Itachi, exactly how do you see it happening? Subsonic asked. That's simple. I face him and fight him until he dies. Subsonic gave the young boy a flat look, which didn't have much effect with a mask on. So you fight him head on? Yes. Giving him the chance to fight back. What are they getting at? Sasuke asked himself. Yeah, so what? That proves my point that your motives are wrong. You do want to kill your brother, but you're not doing it for your clan. You're doing it for yourself. Sasuke bared his teeth angrily. What the hell makes you think that? It's simple. When training, all you think about is getting strong enough to kill Itachi. I've heard you say that several times when you train. It's always, I must get stronger, I must surpass Itachi. Do you think Itachi's just been sitting on his ass this whole time, waiting for you to come kill him? He's been training too and he has years more experience ahead of you. That's why I must get stronger as fast as possible. Fast enough to surpass him. Sasuke interjected. Subsonic crossed their arms. Apparently the idea of killing him when his guard was down never crossed your mind. You claim you want him dead with every fiber of your being, and yet the idea that maybe you could get him when he sleeps, poison his food, wait until he exhausts himself fighting someone else, or even ambush him when he's on the toilet is something you refuse to consider. If you truly wanted revenge for your clan, you'd take any chance you could to kill him and get it over with. But no, you want to face him in a head-on battle, where he knows you're there and can fight back. What's your point? Sasuke asked, running out of patience. My point, Sasuke, is that proves what I claimed earlier. There's only one reason you would want to fight Itachi this way rather than kill him when it was easy. You want to see him fall before you and say you're stronger than he is. Even though you believe you're more important than anyone else in this village, the only person you admit is stronger than you is Itachi and you want to change that. You want to hear him submit to your might after you defeat him. That proves that this quest of yours has absolutely nothing to do with avenging your clan. You're doing this to get an ego boost and rid yourself of the one thing you feel threatened by. Sasuke clenched his fists and looked like he was willing this unidentified person to burst into flames without any jutsu involved. Who the hell do you think you are? Who am I? Subsonic repeated. If you wanted to know, all you had to do was ask, young man. With that, Subsonic removed their hood and mask. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.